music, and shaders, so you can change everything. Get Opera GX.
All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack, a live look there in New York City. And let's continue with this story after New York Governor Kathy Hochul decided not to remove New York City Mayor Eric Adams, instead put down sanctions. A live look there at the Empire State Building on a busy, bustling Saturday night in the Big Apple. A statement from New York City Mayor Eric Adams here talking about this address from Kathy Hochul, saying, "I was elected by the people of New York City and working class communities to uphold their values, and that is what our administration has done. While there is no legal basis for limiting New York's power by limiting the authority of my office, I have told the governor, as we've done in the past, that I am willing to work with her to ensure faith in the government is strong. I look forward to continuing those conversations." And of course, during that interview with Morgan Mackay, he said he had not spoken to her as of yet when that interview took place. Let's take you right now out to Governor Kathy Hochul from earlier this week on Thursday, speaking about the latest on these big news out of New York.
Posting a photo of the president attired like a king, as well as a message declaring that indeed he was the king. He did this when he attempted to undermine the duly elected laws of our state related to congestion pricing. I reference this again today for one reason. We fought a war 250 years ago to depose a king to try to impose his will on a young country. We don't have a king today because it conflicts with the very genius of a democracy, where the voices and the votes of the people, not a king, not a queen, and not a governor, should prevail.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we are doing a live session on YouTube on one of the smaller channels. Thank you for joining, appreciate it. It is February 22nd. We're going to go over the news, any breaking news that happens to take place during the show. I'm going to also answer a question that Don had during the X Spaces. We're going to play a small segment of a rabbi's interpretation of the contributions of Elon Musk during the Messianic process, and go over some of the products that I have to offer to improve your health and wellness, slow down the aging process, and get healthy. All right. So again, thank you for joining. I'm going to open up X Spaces so you can do a live call-in if you would like to ask questions or to give me your opinion on what's going on with current events. It's an interactive show. So we're just going to do live streaming on YouTube today and the X Spaces simulcast. I'll set that up shortly. But please help support my work by making sure you subscribe to all the channels. All right. I have 4 channels on YouTube: Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. I also have a means for you to support my work by donating. You can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. All the links are in the description of this video and all my videos. Please help support by making sure you subscribe. If you can, please donate. Be a paid member to my Patreon channel. It's through the donations and being paid members and purchasing the products that allows me to provide you with thousands of videos for free. I don't put my videos behind a paywall. None of it is behind a paywall. It's all free. All right. So stop supporting people that put stuff behind paywalls and start supporting people that put stuff up for free. by, you know, the way you support is share the links, make sure you subscribe to all the channels. If you can, donate and purchase the products and be a paid member to my Patreon channel. For the ones that have been paid members to my Patreon channel for years, thank you very much for your support on allowing me to being able to do these videos for free to inform the public about what's going on in current events with their finances and with their health. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. So please share the links and ask your followers, your social media network to follow me, because who are you going to turn to when there is a crisis? You're going to turn to a celebrity doc or someone that actually navigated you through the problem and, you know, was on the battlefield at the very beginning. So with that said, please help support my work by going to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have some new labeling for my structural nano silver soaps. All right, I got 2 soaps that have the new labeling. It's the same high quality soap, just new labeling. The peppermint version of the structural nano silver soap and lavender. Get a couple bars for your household. They're very high quality soaps. Use them every day. It's something that I use. I also have two structural nano soaps with the older labeling. This is lemongrass and charcoal tea tree. Get a couple bars for your household, very high quality. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Another thing that is really important to take for the core, let me talk about this core protocol that I have. All right, it's 4 pillars. I've modified it over time to improve it. The first pillar is max 35 or max 14 to boost up your immune system. The second pillar is C60 to soak up free radicals. The third pillar is to bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines, bring down inflammation, taking turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. And the fourth pillar is to boost up your energy levels and your metabolism through Boomer Boost. All right. When you package that all together as a core for your health protocol, you'll slow down the aging process. You're going to get healthy, and a lot of positive things will happen for your health. And we'll go over each one of them. That first pillar, max 14 or max 35. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the max 14 or the max 35. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and swallow. What that's going to do is boost up your immune system. Take it every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. And then once you feel better, go back down to your maintenance dosage. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the max 14 or the max 35 every day as part of the health routine. All right. And boost up your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. With that, let's go to live now about Mayor Adams.
Office of the Deputy State Controller General, Controller for City Oversight. Because this stepped up oversight, again, this gives us an independent line of sight into potential decisions related to the federal government. This we paid for by city receipts. Once these measures are enacted, they'll be effective immediately and expire at the end of 2025, subject to renewal. I've already discussed each proposal with the city council speaker and the speaker of the state assembly and the majority leader of the New York State Senate. I also told the mayor that strong managers need to be identified to fill the roles of the deputy mayors before they become vacant, and that we in my administration, with strong relationships that we have, will work to accomplish that goal and do whatever he can to keep his key commissioners. I want to take a moment to put this all in context. New York is facing a grave threat from Washington. The Trump administration has said is already trying to use the legal jeopardy facing our mayor as leverage to squeeze and punish our city. The president's already trying to weaken our public transit system and undermine our state sovereignty. I call it the Trump revenge tour, and I have to stand in its way. Not surprising, he's taking out his anger and frustration over the 35 felony convictions he received here in the state of New York, taking it out on our own New Yorkers. And as governor, I will be the vanguard against harm to our state and our people. And nothing will stand in our way. Once I've made a decision, I execute it, I work hard to make it work. My decision today did not come lightly, but the path forward for me is clear. I will retain the powers conferred upon me by the New York State Constitution, the city charter. It is my sincere hope that these dark days will pass, elections will occur, and the people of New York will decide who they trust to govern this extraordinary city. And we can remain laser focused and united against the storm clouds that are swirling 226 miles away in our nation's capital. My eyes are on the city, the state, and on Washington. And I'm ready and prepared to take on any fight against any threats to the well-being of our residents. Any questions?
Governor, hold on, we're gonna do this in an orderly way. Let's start right here. You talked about the role of the people. Who the people gave the power to remove atoms? It seems like a little bit of an awkward workaround to use the power of the people.
So you're saying it's better to ignore the provisions in our constitution that call for free and fair elections?
Can you just walk that out?
No, we have elections in our country and in our state. It's what separates us out from places where they do actually have kings and dictators. This is something I take very seriously. And it is up to the voters of this great city to determine who they want to continue as their leader or bring in a new leader. It is up to them. That is a sacred right that they have, and I will not deny them that.
And you sound like you've spoken to the mayor. Are you confident he'll choose experienced professionals as opposed to sort of combative loyalists like has not been supported their public safety? If you could all characterize his your conversations with him, what did he say? How do you feel about these proposed changes?
You can ask him how he feels about these proposed changes, but I explained that this is an opportunity to install safeguards that we need to have in place to give people confidence that there's only one factor in every decision that's made, and that's what's best for the people of the city. And he has to earn that, and there's an opportunity to do that. I also have a strong team here. They have incredibly tight relationships with the mayor's team. And that constant communication is part of why there's a stabilization of the situation last fall, and why that's what we're shooting for right now. So he's offered to work with us if we have recommendations on people, et cetera. But I want to make sure that the commissioners stay as well. It's early.
Governor, so do you think that the mayor should resign on his own? And if not, do you think he has lost the ability to govern?
It is up to an individual to decide if they want to be moved from office at any time.
You don't think he should?
No, you did not phrase my answer correctly. It is not up to me to tell them to leave. It is up to an individual if they want to resign the office to which they got elected.
Do you think that he's lost the ability to govern?
I'm working to put in safeguards to restore the trust that is necessary to get this city back focused out of all this controversy and get people in New York City what they want. They just want normalcy again, and that's what I'm fighting to restore.
Allie, in the back.
So at this point, is removing the mayor from office off the table?
I use the phrase at this time.
So you may revisit it at some point?
I will never surrender powers I have.
Is there anything that could happen coming out of the court hearings that would change your mind?
I'm not going to say at this time. I need to see what the court happens, but also, as I said, it is my duty as the governor of the state to make sure I'm aware of what's going on, that if there's problems, that I intercede, but otherwise these are duly elected officials with jobs to do as well.
Mark, in the back.
Governor, the mayor and Homeland discussed putting ice back in Rikers. So with all these provisions that you're putting forward, would that stop that? What position would you take and what would you do stop that or any of the moves that they plan?
All right. So a lot's going on in New York, right? I did cover this on Friday, so this is a little bit of a repeat. I have set up X Spaces if you want to do a call in, ask questions, give me your take on the news. What I want to do is I want to pivot to Al Jazeera right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, the negotiations of this deal have always been difficult. That's why it has taken on months and months and months. And so the negotiators are really, they have their job cut out for them, so to speak. They need to act fast. They need to bring in the United States. They need to obligate the U.S. They need to demand that the U.S. be the guarantor in this case, and guarantor in this case. So yes, they have a great deal of work. What they need to do now is basically call on all parties, on the two parties, to step back from the brink and see how this can be salvaged, because it can be salvaged. We saw that with the Sherry Beavis issue, it was basically, that mishap. It was corrected very quickly. The Hamas was able to determine the remains of Beavis and return his remains back to the Israelis. So it can work out. When you have issues and difficulties, they can be worked out. We saw last week when Hamas said we are going to stop for now, or put on hold the release of Israeli detainees. Then they backed up. So the negotiators, the mediators have been effective thus far. So they need to work hard and to work quickly and to make sure that both parties step back from the brink.
Saeed Arakat, so we appreciate your insights. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
US President Donald Trump has been addressing the most influential gathering of conservatives in Maryland. Speaking at the Conservative Political Action Conference, Trump told the gathering that retrieving the bodies of killed Israelis was just as important as returning the remaining captives alive.
And we will not rest until all of the hostages have been returned back home. Some of them are coming home in very bad condition, and some of them are coming home only as bodies. They're dead. We have a lot of them coming home now. They're dead, and these are largely young people. Young people don't die.
The Vatican says the head of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, is in a critical condition after suffering a long asthmatic respiratory crisis. The 88-year-old pontiff has undergone a blood transfusion due to a low platelet count. Pope Francis is being treated for pneumonia in both lungs. The Vatican says his condition has worsened and he will not appear in public to lead his usual prayer with pilgrims for a second consecutive week. The French President Emmanuel Macron says there's need for collective action to contain what he called Russia's aggression in Ukraine. His remarks come ahead of his meeting with US President Donald Trump at the White House next week. The French president says his visit will primarily focus on peace negotiations with Ukraine. The Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, UN Refugee Agency, says 42,000 people have fled to neighboring Burundi in 2 weeks. That's as Rwandan-backed M23 fighters advance in North and South Kivu provinces. Many refugees are making a dangerous journey by boat, are exhausted, hungry, and often sick. The UN says about 9,000 Congolese crossed the border on Tuesday alone. But you can find a lot more on our website, aljazeera.com. Weather is next, followed by Inside Story. Stay with us.
Hello there. It's a very settled affair when it comes to the weather across South Asia at the moment. Lots of sunshine and dry skies for much of Pakistan and India, as well as Sri Lanka. We've got a little bit of rain here and there for the northeastern India, that east coast as well. We could see some thunderstorms in Odisha with some stronger winds and potentially some lightning as well. But that does ease as we go into the new week. Instead, we'll see the wetter weather pick up in Sri Lanka with thunderstorms in Colombo by Tuesday. Could also see some wetter weather developing in northern parts of Pakistan thanks to a westerly disturbance moving its way across Afghanistan. That could also bring some snow to the higher ground.
Okay, as we cycle through Al Jazeera's news, I want to pivot over to CNN. Trump fires U.S. General and Navy Chief. But let me just plug the drops and the lozenges. Please help support my work and get the great products that I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I have lozenges and drops, very high quality structural nanosilver lozenges and drops. For the lozenges, which are larger, you can get it in Manuka honey and also in elderberry zinc. Get a couple bags of lozenges for your household or for your work. You're going to need them right when you have that irritation in your throat. Take them right away and mitigate the problem, either in the cold season or even in the allergy season. We're going to be getting out of the cold season soon, and we're going to be going into the allergy season. So it's really important to stock up on the lozenges and the drops. With the lozenges, you get 21 in each bag, and for the drops, you get 100 small drops in each bag. It's the same high quality structural nanosilver drops that I was selling before, just in a new packaging. It's a better packaging. So you can get it in cherry. You can also get it in blueberry and in honey and lemon. This is very high quality. Get a couple drops, get a couple structural nanosilver drops and lozenges for your household or for work. Right when you have that irritation, take them right away to mitigate the problem, either during the cold season or during the allergy season. Extremely important. So just stock up. When you need them, take them. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 on any order and you get $5 off. So please help support my work by going to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description of this video and all my videos, and get the great products I offer. Thank you for joining X Spaces. For the ones that are watching the live stream on YouTube, if you want to ask a question, you can join X Spaces and just ask for the mic, and you can tell me your thoughts about what's going on in the news or whatever. This is an interactive show, so thank you for joining. I'm going to pivot over to CNN now and play this video that they published about the U.S. General and the Navy Chief being fired.
We begin tonight with breaking news. President Trump has just fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, his top military advisor. He made the announcement on social media, quoting from his post, "I want to thank General Charles C.Q. Brown for his over 40 years of service to our country, including as our current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's a fine gentleman and an outstanding leader, and I wish a great future for him and his family." The president went on to say, "Today, I'm honored to announce that I'm nominating Air Force Lieutenant General Dan Raisin King to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff." Now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had previously called for General Brown's firing because of his, quote, woke focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in the military. Hegseth on our radio show last fall said, or a podcast last fall said, first of all, you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And he went on to talk about how any general involved with DEI efforts should be fired. Either you're in for war fighting and that's it, he said. CNN's Caitlin Collin has more reporting on this, and she joins us right now. It's not entirely unexpected, especially since the new defense secretary has been talking about this before he was even being considered for that job. How much of this is about DEI?
Well, I think it depends on your definition and what that looks like. And I will say that when Hegseth got confirmed as the defense secretary, that he stood next to General C.Q. Brown, and who was the president's top military advisor, effectively, and said that he looked forward to working with him. So we actually saw him strike quite a different tone after Hegseth had gone through the confirmation process. It was actually at the Pentagon. But one thing that was clear was this is something that has been long rumored for weeks now, that this was in the works, that this was going to happen, that they had not changed their minds on that feeling initially of General C.Q. Brown ever since you heard those comments from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And just to drive home how unusual this is, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Anderson, typically stays regardless of who the president is. Even if they change parties and it's a different administration, they stay for that 4-year term. And he started his in October of 2023.
But just because there seems to be an organizational precedence doesn't mean that it should go on infinitum. So what? Maybe that's the problem with the deep state. They're used to these ideas that the ones that are institutionalized in that agency or in the government of that branch or whatever, or military, whatever it is, that they're just going to transition from one presidency to another, and that they're not beholden to the electoral process. No. So what? This is the problem with CNN is that if you listen to in between the lines, they're always like, well, Trump's going against precedents. Well, that's part of the problem. That's how the deep state works. And it roots into the system, and it truly believes that they are not beholden to the people because they don't go through the electoral process. Wrong. Just because there was a precedence from going from one administration to another, to another, to another, doesn't mean it should continue forever.
Seated General Mark Milley in this role. And so his term does not expire until the fall of 2027. But with this ouster tonight, Trump has removed him from his post and is now picking someone else to take this position, which really does drive home what you heard from Pete Hegseth in that interview back in November, blaming him for DEI policies. That is obviously part of this. And I've been talking to people in recent weeks. None of them would say on background or privately that CQ Brown's job was assured in this role. I will note today he was posting pictures. He was at the southern border and was talking about the work that the military has been doing and what that partnership looks like. And so he clearly was still doing his job as of just a few hours ago before Trump announced on Truth Social tonight that he was ousting him.
Traditionally, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, usually as administrations change, that position often remains the same.
Traditional. Let's look at this with wide eyes, all right, and put a common sense hat on. Anderson Cooper working for CIA, was an intern at the CIA when he was younger. We know that the CIA embeds themselves in the media through the Smith-Modernization Act. And then he's pontificating about how, well, this is against precedents. It is the right of the president, if he feels as though his military commanders aren't going to follow suit on policy, or he feels uncomfortable with them, or does not believe in their leadership, it is completely in Trump's power to fire anyone in the military. Anybody. Why? Because he's the commander-in-chief.
When a new president comes in, that person is removed.
Yeah, for example, General Mark Milley. That was Trump's actual handpicked Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman. It might be hard for some to believe, given how much that relationship deteriorated and how Trump talks about Mark Milley now and is, reposted things suggesting.
The big problem that Trump had in his first administration is he trusted too many people to tell him who to put into office, and that's how the deep state was able to slow walk his first administration. So he didn't get back into office in 2020. So he was able to sit down, play some golf and think about what he's going to do when he becomes president again. And he thought, you know what? I'm not going to trust so many people anymore. And I'm going to go based on my gut, and I'm going to be focused on people that are America first. And if I have a sense that they are going to do a backstab, I'm not going to bring them into the administration. And that's what he should have done in his first term. But he was naive. But guess what? 4 years of playing on the golf course and thinking about how he was going to win back the presidency made him wise up. Because guess what? Part of the deep state is the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Why? Because there isn't a weapons program that they don't want to pay for, no matter how ineffective it is. Why do we have like 14 different versions of the F-35?
Funerals for him, but that was actually someone that he handpicked in his first term to be the Joint Chiefs chairman and take on that role. It is a 4-year term. When President Biden won and took office, he kept Mark Milley in that role and did not fire him or oust him.
He should have. He should have. It just Trump was naive. Plus, he had to deal with all the problems that were going on around the world. You know, in late 2019 and obviously 2020. But he could bring on a chief of staff, put him on. You know, he's going through the confirmation and all that. He's there, and then all of a sudden, after a week, he says, "You know what? I just don't like you," and gets rid of him, and has to go through the process all over again. It's in his power to do.
That is when he picked C.Q. Brown. It is now a 4-year role. It used to be every 2 years, I believe, and then they would go up for Senate confirmation once again. But typically, yeah, those are positions that stay on.
You notice, it's like, you know, typically, you know, this is it, you know, but is it in his power to get rid of them? The answer is absolutely, positively yes. Where he went wrong in his first term is he trusted too many people that were deep staters. He was naive.
List of the political party. And so the thing to watch here tonight, though, Anderson, as this is the first major firing that we are seeing happening at the Pentagon since Trump took office just a little over a month ago, is whether anyone else is to follow. Because there have been rumors that have been rampant in Washington for weeks now that there is going to be mass firings, I would say multiple firings at the leadership of the Pentagon. It's been hard to run down whether or not that's actually going to happen, but tonight we are getting this late night announcement. The top military advisor.
Thank God for Pete Hegseth, because finally we have a defense secretary that actually is cleaning up the mess that has been there for decades. And guess what? The Pentagon has a hard time counting where they're spending the money. They can't pass an audit. Why should we give all these, like, you know, all these provisions to the Pentagon when they literally are wasting taxpayer dollars and having derivatives of different weapon systems that we don't need? It's a waste of money. Did we need 14 different versions of the F-35 while our Navy is depleted? That we're not at parity with ships with the CCP? That our shipyards are declining? Hello, wake up. And then you have Wall Street that wants some sort of metal deal where U.S. steel is sold to Japan. The last time I looked, you need steel to make ships.
The president has been ousted.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks very much. We'll see you at the top of the hour for The Source. I want to play that soundbite of Pete Hegseth in November talking about General Brown.
Well, first of all, you got to fire. You got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, it's got to go.
Absolutely.
Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. And that's the only litmus test we care about.
Yep.
Joining us now is Ron Manning.
But I would, and because that was taken, you know, it was just a clip. So I don't know if Pete Hegseth also added that in the podcast, added this other statement in the podcast. I don't know. But another element isn't just the DEI, it's the wasteful spending. Because what happens is these generals, they get a lot of medals on their chest. All right. My family has served the United States for many generations. All right. Many generations, almost in every single major war. All right. But these generals, so, you know, I'm very pro-military. These generals, they get lots of different medals on their chest. And these generals that we're talking about are after Vietnam, not during Vietnam. So we're talking, some of them start serving during Reagan's time, so it's like the end of the Cold War. They served in Iraq and Afghanistan, Desert Storm, you know. They get these medals on their chest, and lots of them, but didn't win a war post 9/11. We didn't even win the Gulf War. Gulf War I, you remember that? You know, with Saddam Hussein? We blew up his army, but didn't decide to march to Baghdad to kill the guy. Then we had to have Iraq, you know, version 2 after 9/11. So we haven't won wars, but they have lots of medals, and they spend a lot of American taxpayer dollars, and they push these stupid DEI woke agendas. Now, what happens is that you have middle America serving in the military, seeing this crap, and they say they don't want to re-enlist because they don't want to be a part of it. My brother served in the army, and he saw this bullshit starting in the 90s, and he didn't re-enlist. So guess what? It's not just the DEI, but there's an overall culture that's changing because of this kind of wokeism and wasteful spending. And now we're weakened. Our Navy is weakened. Now we have Pete Hegseth that gets in and says, hey, we're going to be more lethal and we're going to win wars this time. Finally. I mean, literally, Miley has a bunch of medals on his chest, and he hasn't won one fucking war. Not one. But he spent trillions of dollars of American taxpayer money.
Former Chicago mayor and currently senior political and global affairs commentator. Ambassador, appreciate you being with us. Understand you know General Brown. What do you make of this fire?
Yes. Well, not only know him, I knew him as ambassador in Japan, and he has not extensive experience in the far Indo-Pacific area as a former Air Force head in Indo-PACOM. I think this, you know, in a week of unsteadiness of America, the idea that also then on our national security profile to have this type of
he has so many medals on his chest, but not one of them did he win a war. Not one. Not one of them. Not one. And we're supposed to put him in high esteem? You're telling me there's no one else that understands the Pacific? I probably know more about the Pacific region than most of these clowns.
A level of weakness. Now, see how this plays out. Right now, China is doing a military exercise they've never done before off the coast of Australia. Live fire. It's impacted civil aviation there. Because of the weakness, China is doing something we have never, ever seen. What is the United States communicating? Chaos at home, a firing over some political difference, if that's the true reason. It is unsteady both in Europe, and now it's unsteady in the military.
Well, let's get this straight. You know, he was an advisor to Obama. And Obama's administration weakened our military, especially when it came to the Navy. Now, Obama did say that we were going to pivot to Asia. But the thing is that during the Obama's administration, guess what? We kept on shipping jobs overseas to China and building up that supply chain so you could buy cheap goods at Walmart. So we were importing deflation while we were hemorrhaging manufacturing jobs. And guess what? You need manufacturing to actually sustain a war effort. That was Obama. So we're going to assume that Emmanuel is a Pentagon of knowledge.
It is also projecting, I think, a level of chaos here. I think it's very, very reckless. And he has experience. I dealt with him many times as ambassador. His knowledge.
Trump was born under the stars of chaos. Don't you think to be successful as a developer in New York, you think it's all going to be just a sequential, logical series of events? Nah. Lots of chaos, and wheeling and you know, almost quantum physics kind of stuff, where you know two possibilities could happen at the same time. All right. The chaos is good because by adding chaos, it's gonna allow for our enemy to start rethinking about potentially their grand plan that they have published. The PLA has published that they want Taiwan by 2025. Now, you know, they have telegraphed that maybe it would be 2027, maybe. But if you look at the original documents, they were saying 2025, they want the island chains, the first island chains. Well, thank you, Obama, for weakening our military. The last I looked, we're in 2025. So there's a high probability that Taiwan may become a flashpan within Trump's administration. And so we're going to have to strengthen the military to make sure that we hold the island chains. Because if we lose the island chains, we lose right of passage. And you don't want that.
Trust that Australia, New Zealand, his counterparts in India, in Japan, and South Korea. This is not the type of thing you want to have at a moment where people are trying to figure out where the United States is going, what the type of leadership is. I think it actually projects very bad, not just on the United States. It is something our adversaries are going to take advantage of.
President Trump also said he's going to have Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth solicit nomination for 5 more high-level military posts. Does that sound like, I mean, a purge of some sort at the highest levels in the American military? Is this common?
Because it's not, just because it's uncommon doesn't mean it's not right. See, that's the point. That's the whole point of me getting upset, you know. And we're only 6 minutes and 49 seconds into almost a 10-minute video. Just because you're breaking precedents doesn't mean it's wrong. Breaking precedents may actually be a good thing because guess what? We keep on screwing things up with precedents. Well, didn't Einstein say if you keep on doing the same thing over and over again and you're not changing the results, it's called insanity?
I was there for President Clinton and President Obama. You kept people in because there's something to the steadiness, the trust, and the relationships they built worldwide that people know they can count on America. Look, his knowledge, CQ's General Brown's knowledge of the region I worked at extensively was a checkmate on China. There was many allies and friends.
Oh, really?
That knew
oh, really? Oh, really? If it was such a checkmate on China, why did President Xi continue signaling with military exercises, with going into the airspace of Taiwan and telegraphing to our military and to our president and to the community at large that they're going to bring in Taiwan into a greater China? I'm not making this up. That was under Biden's administration. She said it during Trump's first term. She also said it during Obama's administration. Aren't they listening? Now, majority of that tenure of these so-called experts, what did they do to counteract that? Did they checkmate President Xi? No. The Americans kept on paying for cheap goods and building up the PLA. We were literally funding the buildup of China's weapons program because we wanted cheap spatulas at Walmart.
level of impact where a lot of folks across the branches of the armed forces are going to start to look over their shoulder and pull back for risk of getting on the wrong side. This is not the moment in time. I think the United States wants our men and women, not just in the armed forces, but more importantly in their leadership, unsure and unsteady in questions. You have moments, and I just use this example because it's prevalent out there. China is doing something we've never seen off the coast of Australia in front of Sydney, and live fire. They've never done this. The United States is nowhere to be seen, found as a deterrent with one of our closest allies in the region. And now, rather than
and the reason why we don't have a deterrence in the Pacific Rim is because we don't have enough aircraft carrier defense groups. And oh, by the way, the Harry Truman is damaged by going through the Suez Canal, so that's out of commission. Thank you very much. And this is all under fucking Obama.
We're fighting the head of the Joint Chiefs. Imagine what that communicates, not just to China, but across the globe as people look at the United States. Is this a country you're going to hang your hat on and you're going to actually draft behind because you understand and trust their leadership? And I say that because we have many dinners with all the Indo-PACOMs with President Obama. There's a connectivity between the president and the military leadership, and that's essential for our national security.
This also comes as a time as the war in Ukraine continues, and obviously there's now a realignment with this administration and our European allies, who traditionally have been our allies, and Russia.
Well, look, in this situation, and I've talked about it, written about this, I think what we're doing here is we're basically empowering our adversaries and endangering our allies. You
really think that they weren't empowering our adversary? You really believe, Emmanuel, that we weren't empowering our adversaries under the Biden administration and the Obama administration? You really believe it?
State deal. They got 20%. They get that. That's how much Russia has now of Ukraine. Russia is looking at these negotiations. This is about Ukraine's sovereignty, and we're going to claim it. It's a totally different discussion between the United States. We're just looking at it, president's background. It's real estate. Russia sees the grand power play here in Europe, the projection. This is not just Ukraine sovereignty. Moldova, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, every place where we put troops, they've now said we've not only gotten everything we.
Putin is not healthy. Putin is 72 years old. He might be turning 73 this year, I think. His country's exhausted with the war effort. He has to import North Koreans. His manufacturing isn't as robust as it was pre-war. Both countries, Ukraine and Russia, need the reliance of other countries to maintain the war effort. If other countries don't support the war effort, it grinds to a halt because both sides are exhausted. Now, you really think that Putin, after a peace agreement and trying to get integrated back into the global economy and be a key player at the G8 summits and align more economically with the United States and get the sanctions off, do you think Putin would risk trying to go after Moldova? He's exhausted. He can't continue a war effort. It's not going to happen. Wake up. The war that's coming is with the United States and the CCP, and we better have more allies. That's why Trump is aligning with Modi. We just heard that last week about trade agreements, and there seems to be a warming up of relations between India and the United States. That's a southern ally for a multi-front war on China. If we can bring in Russia, we got a northern front ally. And we can then pinch the CCP from the north, from the south, and from the east. But if you got perma bears all the time from the Cold War poking at Russia with NATO expansionism, do you think that there is a chance in hell that we're going to have an ally to fight the CCP? Of course not. That's what happens when you stick to precedents.
On the United States leaving Ukraine vulnerable. We've gotten what we want on negotiations vis-a-vis NATO. We now want your troops out of Eastern Europe. They've added and they put, we see your 20 at 40 at the table. This is a dangerous precedent because we're projecting weakness, and weakness invites aggression, and you're seeing it play out in the Indo-Pacific right now.
All right. We are run by a bunch of idiots. We are run by a bunch of idiots, and the sad thing is that these idiots literally kill people from their decisions and waste our money. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work and these live streams by going to my store and get the products that I offer. These are products that I take to improve my immune system, improve my overall health, and slow down the aging process. If you follow what I do, you're going to get healthy, all right? Magnesium and zinc is very important to take every day to boost up your immune system. It's water soluble, so you should be drinking with filtered water. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a double dose. Take 1 dose in the morning, take 1 dose in the evening. And if you're feeling fine, go back to your maintenance dose of once a day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the magnesium and zinc and boost up your immune system. Very important, because if you have a weakened immune system, you age faster. When you age faster, you start turning ugly. All right. When you get older, you start atrophying. Once you hit about 40 years old, you start losing muscle mass, and it's harder to gain muscle. Myotrol is a supplement you should be taking every day if you're an athlete, either young or older, or if you're not an athlete and you're 40 years of age or older. Myotrol helps with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. You do some resistance training, and you take the Myotrol, and you're going to build muscle. Now, you'll get even additional benefits if you take it with the Gladiator barley, because the Gladiator barley is an heirloom barley that's high density protein. So by weightlifting, you're going to send signals to build muscle. Myotrol helps with the gene expression for those muscles to be built and maintained. And the building blocks for the muscle is the Gladiator barley, because it's a high density protein. So you take half a scooper or a full scooper a day. And it's a powder, so you can mix it with soft foods or with filtered water. Some people mix it with milk, however you want to take it, it's up to you. So this is a great combo, Myotrol and Gladiator barley, if you want to get strength gains for males and females. Now, if you're an athlete, younger or older, use this combo, Myotrol and Gladiator barley, for fueling your workout. Now, you can take them separately. You can just take the barley, and that's the protein to build muscle, or just take Myotrol for gene expression to build muscle. You'll see strength gains, but you'll see the maximum strength gains by taking Myotrol and Gladiator barley together. So this is the reason why I do these shows. I tell you how to stack these things so you get the max benefit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the Myotrol. It helps with gene expression to maintain muscle and build muscle. Very important when you get older. If you notice when people get older, what are some of the common themes? They atrophy, they gain weight, they're not moving around, their energy levels go down, their immune system goes down. I'm telling you how to reverse it, how to boost up those energy levels, how to reduce atrophying and reverse it, and how to boost up your immune system. So when you are in your geriatric years, you're not just wasting away in a rocking chair. You actually have vitality. Now, you can take my advice or don't take my advice. I know I'm right. And if you don't follow me, you're going to be sitting in a rocking chair one day, and you're going to have no energy, and you're going to just waste away. It's your choice. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use the discount 5, and you get $5 off, and stack it the way I'm telling you to stack it. the stuff works. For the ones that have been following me for many years, you notice I'm not aging? No, I'm not a vampire. It's because my anti-aging protocol works. Thank you very much. All right, let's listen to what's going on in Al Jazeera. It looks like they're talking about the West Bank, I think. Well, I find another video to complain about.
Release of Palestinian prisoners and detainees would only happen if the release of Israeli captives is guaranteed without rituals, which he called humiliating. It is unclear what that means because the only remaining Israeli captives in the category of phase 1 are 4 bodies of Israeli captives killed during the war by Israeli bombardment, according to Palestinian groups. So there are a lot of questions, a lot of dashed hopes as well, and a lot of work for the mediators who had hoped the release of over 600 Palestinians and 6 Israeli captives would push both sides to the negotiating table to secure an agreement on phase 2 that would secure the release of all remaining Israeli captives and withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza and an end to the war. For now, all of that is up in the air. The governor of Ramallah announced that her office would be hosting and providing accommodation for the dozens of family members who waited for hours in the bitter cold to receive their loved ones, only to be disappointed after a long, cold night. Raudi Al Jazeera, Amman.
Tarek Al-Azum reports from Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, where Palestinians have been waiting for the release.
The Israeli Prime Minister's office has declared that they have postponed the release of the Palestinian detainees due to the very remarkable humiliating procedures that have been widely seen with the Israeli captives. They have said that they will release the Palestinian detainees once they can see a change of the humiliation treatment that.
I mean, think about this. It's so strange and lopsided. Israel gets a few hostages back, and then Israel has to give 600. They get, Israel gets 5, and then, hundreds to Hamas. It is very lopsided, I think, but not just that. There's a lack of regard on both sides. Again, like I said, all wars, no matter who conducts them, all wars have war crimes. Both sides, all wars. Now, some of it is institutionalized, like the Nazi Party, and some of it is more at a ground level where it's a platoon or if it's 1 or 2 soldiers. But all wars, both sides have war crimes. So Hamas has done war crimes. IDF has done war crimes, for sure. But this lopsided trade with hostages is ridiculous. And then not only that, how Hamas has treated these hostages and just threw them in mass graves when they died. And then when they dig them up, they don't even know who they're digging up. And this is why I kept on saying that we're in very tumultuous times. We're in, times that test men's souls, right? And women. But the thing is that there's a battle that's going on between good and evil. And we're seeing it playing out on CNN on a daily basis. Not just CNN, but you get the point. So it's just, it's ridiculous. And the lopsidedness of this, and unfortunately, you had a international community that kept on kicking the can down the road all the way to the point where now we're at the point we're in, where weapons kill more people, the population densities are larger, there's more collateral damage, it's more costly. If Israel got the job done in the 70s and won the war, we wouldn't have this problem. If Israel got the job done in the 80s or the 90s or in 2000 or 2010s, you know, we wouldn't have this problem. But it was the international community saying, ceasefire, kick the can down the road so we can have more collateral damage. So the international community has put the whole world in this situation, because with war, it has to be all in or don't do it. You've got to win. You can't ceasefire your way out of a war. It doesn't end that way. You have to win 100%. The enemy has to 100% capitulate. We didn't have that with these stupid ceasefires from the international community. The Ribby told Netanyahu in the 1980s, warning him. This is before Netanyahu became prime minister. He was just a representative, a delegate at the UN. But the Ribby told Netanyahu, guess what? Something big is going to happen in your life. And he gave him 3 things that he has to follow to be successful. Do not care about what the international community has to say. Do not be fearful, and do not be hubris, and you will be victorious. All 3 of those were broken, and that's why Israel didn't get the job done. And that was warned to him in the 80s. Now, how does someone that's an old little guy know that we would be in the situation we're in today and warn Netanyahu specifically that he had to follow this edict? Now, do you think that the little old guy telling this to Netanyahu is a little bit more wise than anyone in the room at the UN? I think so. Well, we didn't listen, and now we have global war. All right, let's pivot to SCOTUS.
Leaders coming into the Situation Room right now. We just got an important ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court on President Trump's attempt to remove a top federal watchdog. Our chief Supreme Court analyst, Joan Biskupic, is joining us right now. So what did the High Court just say, Joan?
Sure, good to see you, Wolf. This is the very first Supreme Court test of Donald Trump's second term agenda. And I can tell you that the justices already were struggling. They essentially punted. This case, as you said, involved President Trump's ability to remove an appointee of President Biden who should have been able to serve a full 5-year term. He was just appointed last year, but Donald Trump is trying to remove this man. And lower courts had put a pause on Donald Trump's effort. He had come to the Supreme Court, then appealing, and the justices said, we're not going to quite decide yet. We're going to let this man, Hampton Dellinger, who is over this watchdog agency, stay in place for now, but we're going to revisit this probably after next Wednesday, when a lower court is going to have a hearing on the merits of this case over whether President Trump can remove this individual. This all goes to, as you know, Wolf, Donald Trump's efforts to really flex his executive branch authority. He's trying to remove so many people from offices. This is one of literally dozens of lawsuits that are now percolating. And in this first one, the justices were not quite ready to say the extent of President Trump's power, but they did. This is a partial win for the challengers to Donald Trump, because they're letting this individual, Hampton Dellinger, stay in office. So you know what the president had wanted was for the court to immediately say he has to go. Now there was a split in how the justices decided this, and let me just lay it out. First of all, it was an unsigned opinion, but the majority was saying that it needed to postpone any action until at least next week. Justices Gorsuch and Alito, 2 conservatives, said that they would have sided with President Trump and let him act in this case. 2 of the strongest liberals, Justices Sotomayor and Jackson, said they would have totally sided with the challengers here, with Mr. Dellinger. So it shows you that we get a little bit of a glimpse of some of the dilemma of the justices in this first major test, and we're just going to keep seeing them come week after week after week. Wolf.
Sure we will. All right, Joan, thank you very much for that update. I want to bring in our legal experts to assess what's going on. Jennifer Rogers, how big of a setback potentially is this for the Trump administration?
Well, we don't know yet, Wolf. They've really just put it on pause. This isn't the merits of the matter. This case came up on a temporary restraining order, and there's a question as to whether a temporary restraining order is even appealable in the first case. So that may be where the justices kind of got sideways. Some of them wanted to hear it on this basis, others maybe didn't. That may be why they've come out the way they did right now. But we won't know until they take the case on the merits what the court thinks of what the case is really about, which is what obstacles can Congress place in the way of the president in firing someone like the special counsel. There's been kind of a narrowing over the years of Congress's ability to stop the president from firing people inside of the executive branch. And so we won't know until we actually get a merits ruling what the court is going to do on that question.
Steve Vladeck is also with us. He's an expert on the Supreme Court. You know the court well, Steve. Are you surprised, first of all, by this?
A little surprised, Wolf. I mean, I think it's odd for the court to issue a ruling that says we're not going to issue a ruling.
No,
but I think
remember what happened during the Biden administration with whistleblowers. FBI agents and other individuals within government would whistleblow about nefarious activities that were going on, especially at the FBI. And the FBI went after the whistleblower. So the whistleblower independent agency didn't help. See, if you go against the deep state kicks, goes after you, even if there's an independent agency for whistleblowers. So it didn't work. Why didn't it work under the Biden administration? Oh, the whistleblowers were talking about the nefarious activities that were going on with the Biden administration and within the FBI. So why not get rid of the agency if it's not working? Oh, it's not about whistleblower. It's not an independent agency for whistleblowers. It's really an agency to try to find who might expose the deep state and then go after them. It's almost like an immune system. It's almost like an immune system within the deep state. It senses, oh, there's a whistleblower there. You could say whatever you want. You'll be protected. And then you say something bad about the FBI, let's say you're an agent of the FBI and you're saying, there's some nefarious things going on. Then the whistleblower agency will go, oh, really? And then they do their investigation. And then somehow the tentacles of the deep state go after the one that's whistleblowing. Did it really help? Did it help those people that were whistleblowing on the FBI? It didn't. Their careers were ruined. They were demonized, docked. Didn't work.
Has a lot to do with why the middle of the court has acted the way it did. I think you had some real wariness, not just from one end of the court, from the other, of what would happen if the court started inviting the Trump administration or other litigants to come up to the court, even when all that's happened in the first lower court is a temporary restraining order. And so, Wolf, I'm a little surprised that they're deciding to not decide. But I think two critical points are the one Jennifer made, that they're still going to have to decide this sooner rather than later. And Wolf, two, this is about as good a case as there is for the Trump administration when it comes to the strength of the arguments against the removal protection for the special counsel. There's a reason why the Department of Justice wanted to bring this case to the justices first. Even if the court ultimately sides with President Trump, we shouldn't assume that that's an indicator of where it's going to go in the rest of its cases. In the flip side, Wolf, if Hampton Dellinger survives, if the court actually sides with Dellinger as early as next week, that's not just a big blow to Trump here. That is a sign that this court's going to be much more aggressive, pushing back against President Trump than I think a lot of people might expect.
Elise Adamson is still with us as well. Elise, as you know, many of the conservative justices on the Supreme Court have traditionally favored executive power, certainly in past cases. So what does that tell you about what they may ultimately decide in this case?
Yes, well, and I think we saw that just in what we just heard from the reporting with Borges and Alito. willing to take up the case on the merits rather than deciding to not decide. It's just been described. I do think that we have seen an extreme expansion in the interpretation of executive power, and this is a real test. There's a federal law that created this Office of Special Counsel, and Congress tried to make very clear the reasons why an individual could be terminated. They tried to outline this. And so this is going to be a test of the separation of powers. And so I think we can expect to see this court continue on their streak of their interpretation of executive power. And I do think there is a chance that the Supreme Court will rule in the Trump administration's favor, in this case, for those reasons.
Jennifer Rogers, our legal analyst, is still with us. Jennifer, this was, as we noted, the first U.S. Supreme Court test of the second Trump administration. So how should we read into this for future cases? What do you think?
Well, it's really hard to say. I mean, as Steve was just saying, this is a unique case, and the circumstances of this case won't necessarily hold over to some others. That's probably why the Trump administration wanted to take it up first. So even if they win, I don't know that it tells us a lot. But I mean, you know, a lot of cases are in the process of making their way up to the Supreme Court. So we may learn some things about the way the splits go with the justices on one side or the other. Maybe it'll give us a little bit of a clue, but of course, every case is different, so it will depend on the facts too.
We're always looking for those clues. Everyone, thank you very, very much.
Financial.
Now, what I want to do
when you're on budget and on cloud nine.
What I want to do with this is that there was a rabbi that was talking about Elon Musk, and I played it on, I think, episode 12, and I was asked the question by Don on X Spaces what the 4 main points of the process were that the rabbi talked about. And I told him that I was going to replay that part of it. So let's get to that point. This is a video for the ones that don't know. This is a video. It's called Messianic Contributions of Elon Musk. This is the thoughts of an Orthodox rabbi, very knowledgeable in Talmudic studies, in the Torah, and Kabbalistic thought. And this is something I didn't know, and maybe, you know, many people didn't know. There are 3 kinds of messiahs. All right. Or a good term is contributors, messianic contributors. In Judaic thought, for most people, and in Christian thought, for most people, there is the Messiah. But there are actually, I'll call them little messiahs that happened before. There's a Messiah of Edom, or of Rome. There's a Messiah of Joseph, or Joseph. And then there is the Divinic Messiah. All right. And the Divinic Messiah is the one that most people think about in Christianity or in Judaism. Most people don't think about the Joseph Messiah, or the contribution to the Divinic Messiah, or the Messiah of Edom, or of Rome, that is a contributor to the Divinic Messiah. All right. Also, another concept that most people don't know, I have known this for a long time. Now, there's 2 interpretations. One interpretation is that every generation has 6 potential messiahs born. Then there's another interpretation in Torah where there's 30. Now, it could be that the interpretation is that the 6 is regarded to the Divinic line, and then 24 of the remainder are potential Edom messiahs or Joseph messiahs. Now, in Edom, there are 2 that happen at the same time. In Joseph, there are 2 that happen at the same time. In the Divinic line, there's only 1. All right, so there's this concept that there are 3 different types of messiahs that happen at different moments to set in the process of the Messianic era. that every generation in this diaspora that we're in has the potential of having a Messiah. But certain things have to happen, and if they don't actualize that potentiality, then it doesn't happen for that generation. That's for the Davidic line, that's for the Yosef line, and for the Edom or Rome line. All right. So we have about roughly right now living 30 people that have the potentiality of being one of these categories. My understanding is that 6 of them, of the 30, relate to the Davidic line. That's my understanding. All right. But there are 30 people that are floating around, that are literally on this earth, that if they do certain things, would be one of these messiahs. Most of the time, they fail. So they lose, they had the potentiality, but they don't actualize, and it doesn't happen for whatever reason. Okay, so that's the background. So the rabbi was saying, hey, there looks to be some strong evidence that Trump and Elon are actually part of the messianic contribution of Edom. And that's why that's why they seem to be working, they work so well together. All right. And Trump, even if you don't like Trump or Elon, you have to admit that you don't get to where they are unless there's blessing. You don't become the most richest person in the world without some sort of God's blessing. You don't live through an assassination attempt unless there's a God's blessing. You don't get to the level of notoriety and wealth of Trump without God's blessing. All right. Now, these people can be flawed for sure. But the thing is that there seems to be something special about them. All right. And that's where the rabbi was getting to. Now, what Don asked on the X Spaces was, what were the 4 bullet points that the rabbi was saying before he transitioned into explaining that Elon Musk is a contributor through the Edom line of this messianic process. All right. It's not that Elon or Trump is the Messiah. They're not. But there is this process that has to happen. A messianic contributor that's from Edom or Rome. A messianic contributor that's from Yosef. There's 2 of them. And then the Davidic line that takes place. But it has to happen in this sequence. All right. Now, this is something that most Christians don't understand. Most Jews don't know this. So if most Jews don't know it, most Christians would know it. So okay, so with that in mind, let me try to get to the point where he is going through the 4 bullet points. Now, if you want to listen to my commentary of the whole video, go to episode 12. Grave Concerns, episode 12. All right, so let me see if I can find it here.
Think about a child you love. Now take away their clean clothes, access to water, and the roof over their head. Take away their...
That is where the good itself has to reach a higher level. So once evil is gone, and now, going more into the individual steps, obviously I'm going to leave out the last 2, is the concept of evil, okay? And that is divided into substages. 1, evil has to be removed, and I mean really removed. The actors, the players, the bad people, or evil in and of itself, even by good people, has to be removed. That's number 1. Not only is it have to be removed, but it has to be replaced with good. You see, And good means to be concerned, which is interesting. Good means to be concerned with enhancing and improving being of oneself and of others. That's what the good basically really is. But in any case, evil has to be replaced with good. Then the third part of that is where the good itself has to reach a higher level. So once evil is gone, and then there's good, then the good itself has different levels, okay, of intensity and form. So it has to elevate, and you go from, from a low amount to a much higher amount. So I would say that's the third stage. And the last stage is something which is very interesting, which will happen, by the way, is that the concept of evil or the idea of evil will be removed from creation. That means you won't even be able to think of evil. It doesn't exist anymore as a concept, right? That negative idea, that negation of good won't exist. So you can't be evil because you don't even know what it is. You cannot imagine that type of behavior called evil. And that will only happen, obviously, after the Zerma, after the Chis HaMesim. Because when the Satan dies, which he will die, or certainly he will cease his operations, then what that means is not that Satan ceases, but the idea or the concept lingers on. No, the concept doesn't exist anymore. So you cannot even imagine doing it because you cannot conceive of it. And we don't even know what that means. But God, just like who allows evil? Well, God created the possibility of evil. You see, that itself is a nivra, is a creation. So what God do is he will remove it. He will yank it out of creation. And guess what? If he does, you cannot conceive of it. Right? It's not available to be thought about at all because it doesn't exist. That is the ultimate state of the removal of evil. So I'm just telling you the different sub-stages of the removal of evil itself. And then obviously there will only be good and in its highest form, which will be incredible righteousness. I really mean incredible righteousness and incredible holiness, right? And incredible divinity, which we can only begin to imagine.
All right, I'm going to rewind this for a second. I want to rewind this for a second to a second.
To the individual steps, obviously I'm going to leave out the last two, is the concept of evil, okay? And that is divided into sub-stages. One, evil has to be removed, and I mean really removed. The actors, the players, the bad people, or evil in and of itself, even by good people, has to be removed. That's number one. Not only does it have to be removed, but it has to be replaced with good. You see. And good means to be concerned, which is interesting. Good means to be concerned with enhancing and improving being of oneself and of others. That's what the good basically really is. But in any case, evil has to be replaced with good. Then the third part of that is where the good itself has to reach a higher level. So once evil is gone, and then there's good, then the good itself has different levels, okay, of intensity and form. So it has to elevate, and you go from, you know, from a low amount to a much higher amount. So I would say that's the third stage. And the last stage is something which is very interesting, which will happen, by the way, is that the concept of evil or the idea of evil will be removed from creation.
All right. Okay. So to answer Don's question, there's 4 stages to this process. Evil is killed off and removed, and that the evil, the void, that the removed evil is replaced by the good that killed it off and removed it. So that's the second stage. So you kill off evil and you remove it. To replace the void, good fills that void. Then the third stage is the good has to elevate to these different processes, all right, and become more enhanced. And then the fourth stage, as it's elevated and enhanced, then what happens is that there is literally almost a rewriting of history. These are my words. Rewriting of history in a way where evil never existed. It never was created. So we're living, think about this, we're living in an evil world with good in it. Good battles evil, wins, kills off, removes evil, but still in the history, evil existed. Just removed or killed off, but it did exist in past tense. The good fills the void, it's elevated, and then it's elevated to such a point where there's a singularity, all right, that it gets to a point that evil never existed. That's what he's saying. Okay, so that answers Don's question. All right, now let's continue on with breaking news.
There's more break.
All right, let's go to Pope Francis's condition. He's ailing. I said the Pope was going to die in 2025. It's going to happen. Watch. And not only that, don't you find it really odd that all these things are happening in the Middle East and these major shifts in geopolitics and religion and all this stuff? The potentiality of maybe the red heifer being sacrificed this year. Because right now there are 3 of the 5 or 6 red heifers that are pure to slaughter. The problem is they're having problems with slaughtering it perfectly. All right. So they're doing lots of practices, and it's just like it has to be done perfectly. All right. It can't be any mistakes whatsoever. So, you know, and guess what? Slaughtering for the for the Temple Mount hasn't been done in a long time, like over 2,000 years ago. So they have 3 animals that are pure enough to be the paraduma. It's possible that they do it this year. Now, wouldn't it be really weird that all these things are happening with Gaza and the Middle East, that there is a slaughtering of the red heifer and the Pope dies? Do you really think that the Vatican is going to be that important once they start rebooting the machine? The Vatican won't mean anything anymore, literally. So something big is happening. Now, I believe it's called the prophecy of Malachi, where it talks about the last popes. The question is this pope the last pope or not? Now you got to remember, there was Ratzinger, the previous pope, stepped down. He did die though, but he stepped down. And then Francis became pope. Now the question is Pope Francis the Peter of Rome, Pope or not? If he is, according to the prophecy of Malachi, there isn't going to be a Pope anymore. Now, whatever that means, Now that may actually be part of the prophecy of Malachi, that we're literally moving towards the Messianic age. Who knows? But I do know this: when the red heifer is slaughtered, if it hasn't been already, but it's going to be very important and a major step toward rebooting the machine that mankind has never seen in more than 2,000 years. This is like big, like really big.
Francis is now in critical condition after a severe asthma attack today. The Pope is entering his second week in a Rome hospital where a respiratory infection led to pneumonia in both lungs. Among the millions of faithful...
My uncle passed away last year. My uncle Reuben. Uncle Reuben was he was old. He may have been around 80, late 70s, and he caught a pulmonary infection, and he was just getting worse and worse and worse, and then eventually he was out of shape. And you know, a lot of these Orthodox Jews are out of shape and not healthy, and succumb to the problem. So Uncle Reuben, passed away from pulmonary distress, and it was lingering. You'd get a little bit better and then it came back. When you're older, now he has a medical condition because he had a part of his lungs removed when he was younger. But the thing is that when you get a pulmonary infection and you're older, that is a big sign that you're going to die soon, because lots of elderly people, they get pneumonia and they just can't fight it and they just spiral down. And that's basically what happened to my uncle last year. He shortly died after my aunt died from colon cancer. But he's not going to survive much longer.
For him, the Archbishop of New York.
It's not looking good. I admire his grit. I admire his resilience. I'm praying with him and for him. But I think we have to be realistic, as he certainly is.
Our Stephanie Bennett is live with the latest on his condition. Stephanie.
Hey, John. Yeah, the Vatican says Pope Francis's health has deteriorated over the last 24 hours. And as you mentioned, describing his condition as critical. Now, the Vatican says he suffered a prolonged asthma-like respiratory crisis, and he needed blood transfusions because of a low platelet count associated with anemia. Doctors also had to administer a high flow of oxygen because of his breathing crisis. But he remains alert, though he is more unwell, they say, than yesterday.
His body is shutting down.
Saying at the moment, the prognosis remains guarded. Pope Francis was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14th. He has since been diagnosed with pneumonia in both lungs, along with bacterial, viral, and fungal infections on top of his chronic bronchitis. Right now, dozens are gathering outside the hospital to pray.
We're here to pray for the Holy Father. We've all come together in a very spontaneous way. Some nuns organized this rosary, but we have all joined in this prayer.
Now, let me give you some metaphysics here, all right? It might shock you, all right? So you have this concept that God put life into Adam, and all of our soul roots come off of Adam. Some people come off of his arm, some people come off his leg, but the thing is that all of our soul roots are sparks off of Adam. And Adam was made from dust, and that Adam ended up getting life because God put breath into him. So it's all pulmonary. It's all pulmonary, all right? And you have a leader. Now, to be a pope, there's some sort of God's blessing to get there, all right? That's a very elevated status in the world, all right, no matter what your religion is. Same thing with the Dalai Lama or a head rabbi or whatever. These are they're holy people. But the thing is that they get a blessing to be able to be there. All right, that most people don't have that kind of blessing. Same thing, Elon gets a blessing being the richest person in the world. You just don't become the richest person in the world easily. There has to be some blessing. Same thing with being a president. Even Biden was given a blessing by God. We just don't understand why he was given the blessing by God. But the thing is okay, so the Pope gets a blessing, all right? And, going back to this pulmonary thing here, where God put breath into Adam to allow him to live, to become alive, all right? And we have a major leader that is literally slowly not being able to breathe, that it's like the soul that was put into him by God is slowly coming out. Now, you want to hear something really weird? Because, let's go back one step here that people don't know. To be a Cohen that is a leader of like temple service during the biblical times, the Kohanim, you had to be Kohanim. You couldn't be anything else. You couldn't be a Levite or, from other tribe. It had to be a Kohanim. And they had to be perfect. That means if they had surgery, all right, their physical appearance had to be symmetric. So if they had one eye larger than another, or if they had one big bald spot in one side of their head, or they had one arm shorter than the other, they couldn't do the service. They had to be symmetric. Now, and they couldn't have pieces of their body taken out. So the Pope, before he was Pope, when he was younger, had a piece of his lung taken out. All right. So that would have disqualified him to being a person that could lead a group of people for temple service. Now that's biblical times. Now they don't do sacrifices or anything like that, or approach the Holy of Holies at the Vatican. But the point I'm making is that his physicalness disqualified him from being really a pure, a one that can transmit between the upper world and the lower world because of his asymmetry. And you see him declining with the very thing that makes him asymmetric. Now, anywhere have you heard that? Another 100% DrPaulCottrell original thought. I got thousands of them.
He needs the unity and the prayer of the church to accompany and support him at this difficult time as well.
And a double pneumonia can inflame and scar both lungs, making it difficult to breathe. Of course, the Pope has a history of respiratory illness, having lost part of one lung as a young man and suffering from pneumonia in the past. Doctors have warned that the 88-year-old patient,
the removal of that part of that lung would have disqualified him from being able to represent a group of people in temple service based on Jewish principles. Now, that was during the temple times, where there were sacrifices and the approaching in the Holy of Holies. But the very thing that would have made him, if he was Jewish and if he was a Cohen, the very thing that would have made him disqualified is what's really killing him. So as he's doing these services and he's approaching God and bringing blessing down for the people that are Christian and for the world in large, he's praying for all the people of the world, not just Christians. Even Biden, he's praying for Biden. That through that transmission is somewhat mutated, somewhat distorted because of this asymmetry, the lack of asymmetry. He's literally dying from the very thing that would have disqualified him from being servicing in the temple.
For now, we're keeping our eyes on this very closely. Back to you, John.
All right, Stephanie Bennett from London. Stephanie, thank you. For more on the Pope's condition and his outlook, let's bring in Dr. Mark Siegel, Fox News senior medical analyst. It doesn't sound good, Dr. Siegel.
It's not.
John, it's hard to know exactly how bad it is. You know, his main doctor, Dr. Alfieri, is saying he's guarded. And I want to say one thing that's positive. He's not on a ventilator. He's breathing on his own. He's awake and alert. All of those are good signs. And the fact that he got blood might simply be to improve his oxygen carrying capacity, which you need in a time like this. And they're obviously giving him oxygen. When he had that asthmatic event this morning and they gave him oxygen, they probably also used bronchodilators, which help to open up the lungs. And if you get over that and you're breathing better, that's a good sign. We want to be watching to see how much oxygen he needs, that he remains off the ventilator. Stephanie said, you know, look, he has multiple different bugs. That bothers me. Bilateral pneumonia, it makes it a lot more difficult to recover than one lung.
When you are older, your immune system is weaker, so it's harder to fight infection and to clear it, especially if you have pneumonia. And then on top of it, you have a history of pulmonary problems. This boy is dying. He's going to die this year, and he may not even make the end of the month.
The fact that he had pneumonia before and that he's lost part of a lung before when he was young means that his lung reserve is less, and he's 88 years old. So there's a lot of things that make this hard to say whether he's going to recover, but the longer
and this is why I keep on saying it's a holistic approach to improve your health. And you want to start it when you're younger. The younger, the better. By doing cardiovascular training, not just resistance training, all right? By doing cardiovascular training, you're improving your reserve in your lung capacity. See, what happens is when you get older, your lung capacity literally goes down. All right. Now, if you are exposed to chemicals, it'll go down quicker. People that smoke, it goes down quicker. Everyone, no matter how old you are and how healthy, you will eventually have the septum in between your alveoli starting to die off. And so what happens is that everyone over time, no matter how healthy they are, if you go out far enough into the future, you're going to have COPD, no matter how healthy you are. So what you want to do is just to build up your lung capacity while you're younger to try to reduce the decline curve. And so you could see this with Apollo astronauts. They've increased their lung capacity through their astronaut training, and they had larger lung capacity when they were in their 80s compared to their peer group that didn't do that. So it's really important to do these exercises that actually increase lung capacity, and that's doing cardio. All right, that's not resistance training. So you need to do, this is the reason why you need to do cardio too. All right. Now, a lot of people, when they get older, they just kind of sit there and then their lung capacity starts to decline. And then all of a sudden, because their immune system is down, they may get a bacterial infection or a viral infection. And then they start to develop bronchitis and then pneumonia. And then all of a sudden that viral infection turns into a bacterial infection. And now you're fighting two pathogens. And it's even harder for the body to, you're older and you can't, and this is what's happening with him. He has a decline because of age of his lung capacity. He was out of shape. So you really think he was on a treadmill? He doesn't look like he's on a treadmill. And so so his lung capacity started to decline, his immune system started to decline. He already had pulmonary problems when he was younger. And then all of a sudden, he contracts most likely a viral infection that turned into a bacterial infection, and he's fighting, an intense pneumonia at an elderly age, even though he's probably got the best healthcare on the planet, other than the president of the United States. It would be interesting to see which one has better healthcare, the president of the United States or the Pope. But the point here is that the Pope is dying. 100% he's dying.
It improves, the better off it looks. And again, not on a ventilator, a very good sign.
Yeah, the good news is they say he's in, although he is in critical condition, they say the pain for him is no worse than it was yesterday. But I want to talk about sepsis. His doctors are saying that sepsis is one of the big dangers here. Explain to us how that works, what that's all about.
And that would be the main danger, in my opinion, John. That plus respiratory failure. Is he does he continue to breathe on his own without assistance? That's one thing. Sepsis means that whatever the bacteria is gets from the lungs into the bloodstream. When that happens, your blood pressure goes down. You need support to keep your blood pressure up. It gets more and more difficult. You get acidic, very difficult to recover from that. The fact that he's not septic and not in sepsis, and he's stable, vital signs must be stable, in fact, another good sign. They watch for that, but it's good that it hasn't happened yet, because a lot of the times it happens early on. If they battle this back with antibiotics and he continues to stay stable, there's a pretty good chance he could still recover.
I had a bout with pneumonia a little more than a year ago. It came with some flu, and it was probably the worst illness I've had in my life, far worse than COVID. It's a very tough.
And here's the reality of the situation. When you get pneumonia or chronic bronchitis, it takes months to heal. And that's if your body is young enough and has an immune system that can heal. People don't understand that when you are sick, especially with pulmonary, but any kind of illness, your body gets damaged and the cells start to die off. And there is a disruption within your tissues. And in most cases, you start to heal, but it takes a long time to heal, even though you feel better. So let's say you end up getting pneumonia, and let's say you're in your 50s, all right? And you've had pneumonia and it's lasted for 4 weeks. It literally will take you close to 6 months or more to remodel the damage of the pneumonia. That's why it's so important to attack the problem right away and don't let it fester. Now, if you have something that's benign, like a simple cold that lasts for 5 to 7 days, you're going to be remodeling the tissue damage and the cellular damage. It's going to take 2 to 3 weeks after you clear it. That's a minor infection. Can you imagine getting a major infection? This is why you got to pay attention. And what I've been saying, it's all about boosting your immune system, because if you catch it early, you're reducing the amount of time that you need for remodeling all that tissue damage. So people would say, well, I feel better, I'm breathing. Yeah, but that pneumonia destroyed your lung capacity. And we do have cells that remodel. Type 2 cells help to remodel your lungs up to a certain point, depending on how much damage there are. But as there's damage, you start having, rupture of blood vessels and stuff. And if you had bacteria in the alveoli where you had the ruptured vessels, and then there is a transfer of that bacteria into your bloodstream, then boom, you got sepsis. And then the damage that causes to the kidneys or the liver. Add a few more months to recovering if you survive. See the point here? Just because you feel better after a cold or pneumonia or bronchitis doesn't mean that your body is healed yet. And during that healing process, it's taking energy away and you're aging faster. If you notice someone that's sick, they age faster, much quicker, and their energy levels go down. So it goes back to what I've been saying from day one. It's about energy levels in the immune system. And you got to soak up those free radicals, and you got to attack a problem right away. If you let it fester, it's going to literally kill you over time, because what's happening is it's eating up that runway that you have, and it's going to take a lot of time to remodel. Just imagine if you didn't have to remodel all that damaged tissue, how much your immune system would be more robust instead of having to fight a post-infection and to have to go through a whole remodeling. Now, you can pay attention to what I'm saying or don't pay attention, but many people that are elderly die like what is happening to the Pope. Many, many.
And to get over.
Well, it's also because the lungs sweep themselves out. I want the viewers to imagine the lung is a vacuum cleaning effect. And when you got pneumonia, it's very difficult to get the gunk out of there. And it gets packed in, and it's hard to do that. That's what the nurses do around the clock there. And I guarantee you, he's getting the best medical care anywhere in Italy. The nurses don't get enough credit for this, John. Recovery from pneumonia is all about great nursing.
Yeah. Well, we certainly wish him well as he continues to battle this. You mentioned antibiotics, so that suggests that this is not. There are the two kinds of pneumonia, obviously, bacterial and the other type, which
viral
escapes me right for the moment.
My God, gee, this is the problem that we have with Americans, especially ones that are on Fox News, that are a news anchor. They have zero science. I don't think that they pass a science class. Zero science. And he can't even remember. We just went through a major incident in 2020, and he can't remember the name, what type it is. You kidding me? But your lungs do, he used the term sweep, but there's two things that are happening with the lungs. One, we have macrophages that crawl around in the alveoli to eat up debris. All right. We also have a kind of an escalator system of mucus that kind of moves upward to try to clear particles and to clear infection. All right. The problem comes in is that when there's a lot of bacteria or a viral load within your lung tissue, especially in the alveoli, what happens is lots of damage that takes place. And so it takes time if it can be remodeled. Now, if there's so much damage in that area because of ARDS, and it doesn't sound like the Pope has ARDS, but with ARDS, you're destroying the type 2 pulmonary cells that you have to help with the remodeling. So if you destroy the type 2 cells, you don't remodel your damaged tissue. Now you may eventually everything is cleared out, and with a certain patient, hopefully, and they start to recover because of the antibiotic treatment, and eventually the viral load goes down, and the patient is starting to heal, but they will have permanent lung damage because that infection was so bad that it destroyed that local area type 2 pneumocytes. This is why I keep on saying it's about immune system and a holistic approach to build up that lung capacity through exercise and breathing, even meditation and deep breathing. Just doing breathing exercises improves your VO2 max. Well, this is a lesson learned. And then you got a guy at Fox News that doesn't even remember what the word virus is. Dumbass.
Like it's bacterial.
Viral or bacterial.
Viral, correct.
Viral or bacterial, but the way this is with bilateral pneumonias, the way this sounds, I can't prove this, but I believe it's probably bacterial. And one more thing, you use broad spectrum antibiotics. You want to use a shotgun here to get the bacteria. You don't want to be too elegant. So you use broad spectrum antibiotics to cover different possibilities, and that tends to work.
Because most likely in his pulmonary system, I don't know what started this, if it was viral or bacterial. The first report was that it was a viral infection that turned bacterial, which is usually the case with these patients. But when that bacterial system, because what happens is the virus, if it started off as viral, the bacterial, the viral infection will cause so much disruption and weakening of the system that bacterial starts to grow. Okay. And then it's not probably one bacterium that's causing his problem. It's probably a multitude of bacterium. So it has to be broad spectrum. All right. So we're probably not talking about one bacterium that's a problem here for this guy. Now, if he ended up, his pulmonary infection started as bacterial and it wasn't, it had nothing to do with viral. A lot of times what happens is that one type of bacterium will start the problem, but because of a weakening of the immune system and elderly and going to the hospital, they ended up getting other bacterial problems on top of the original one. So that's another reason why you have to do broad spectrum. Where would this world be without me?
All right, Dr. Mark Siegel, thanks for the explanations. We appreciate it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, we're the major, what needs to happen is coming up with methods to be able to embed pneumocytes type 2 to help with remodeling already damaged tissue to speed up the recovery, especially ones that have permanent lung damage. If one could do that, then you're actually reducing COPD. But that's all research, laboratory type stuff. That's not ready for prime time. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. This is a dual purpose product. This helps with your immune system, brings down inflammation, but also helps with your cardiovascular health by bringing down LDL levels and increasing your HDL levels. So get the olive leaf extract. It's dual purpose. Help with your cardiovascular health and your immune system. It's a great product you should be taking every day. And it stacks well with lignans, with turmeric and ashwagandha. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Guess what? If you detoxify your body regularly, your immune system, your endocrine system, and your overall health will improve. Guaranteed. Please go to my store and get the zeolite. Zeolite removes heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals out of your body. It binds to them and allows you to urinate them out in 6 to 8 hours. Take 2 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, and do that every day. And voila, your body is detoxing. Another thing that you need to do is make sure you drink filtered water. Don't drink that bullshit that's in a can or in a bottle. All right? Drink filtered water. I use the zero water filtration system, but there are other systems that are just as good, if not better. But I use zero water filtration, but do not drink tap water. All right? Another thing that you need to do is stop eating processed foods because it has too many chemicals in it. Clean your house. Take a look at if you're storing paints and heavy cleaning agents that you're breathing in. You don't want them around. All right? If you have to have them, make sure they're in multi-layered containers so it's not degassing, so you're not breathing them in, because they will cause endocrine disruption and affect your immune system. So just improve your environment. Now, ones that want to do a detox once or twice a year, take the zeolite by using about 4 to 5 small drops underneath your tongue and drink the filtered water every day. Do that once a day until the bottle is done, and then do that once or twice a year. It's up to you, but it's better to do the detox every day. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the zeolite and detoxify your body. Guess what? People are exposed to PFAS, forever chemicals. You've heard of that?
You can get rid of forever chemicals with using zeolite. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Let me plug 2 more products here before we go to the next video. NAC is something that I've added to my stack. All right, why did I add it to my stack? I probably added it to my stack about probably more than 6 months ago, probably closer to 8 months ago. Now I've added to my stack because certain people that were, tweaking their anti-aging protocols were starting to notice major differences in their protocol when they added NAC. NAC helps to boost up glutathione levels. Glutathione is a major way to soak up free radicals. It's synergistic with C60. The more ways you soak up free radicals, the better. If you've been paying attention to many of my shows, I say, take C60, it's the most potent antioxidant. But the more pathways of soaking up free radicals, the better you are. So NAC helps with that. Also, the barleys that I have on my store, the heirloom barley and the gladiator barley, they have superoxide dismutase, so it's going to soak up free radicals through that pathway. So the more pathways, the better. Free radicals do damage to your cells and your tissue. Well, if you have damaged cells, how are your tissues going to perform? So obviously, if you reduce free radicals, you're going to slow down the aging process, but not just that, your tissues will perform better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the NAC. It helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney. And guess what? It also helps to calm your central nervous system, reduce anxiety, and put you more into a parasympathetic mode. And that is good for your immune system and your overall health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC. It's really important to add that to your stack. And lastly, resveratrol. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. It helps with mitochondrial health, boost up energy levels, get rid of cells that are sitting there and not dying off. When your cells divide at a certain number of times, the telomere lengths shrink, and either they die off, go through apoptosis, or sit there, and it's called senescence. And if a cell's in senescence, it's just going to collect garbage. And as you get older, you get more and more of these cells that are collecting garbage. So literally, when you get older, your energy levels are going down, your immune system is going down, and your cells are literally a garbage can. And then you wonder why people that are older decline faster and faster and faster and faster, because literally they are becoming more and more and more of a garbage can. To get rid of that garbage can in your cells and get those cells to go into apoptosis, take resveratrol. Now, resveratrol works the best if you stack it with something like C60, NAD+, ubiquinol, NAC. It's a very powerful synergistic effect. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the resveratrol. Resveratrol also soaks up free radicals. All right. Now, what I just said in my video, and this video has been going on for 2 hours, I have told you how to improve your health better than Dr. Siegel did on Fox News. And if you listen to me, you're not going to have to rely on insulin in most cases if you have diabetes. If you're borderline diabetic, you listen to me, you will no longer be borderline diabetic. If you have heart disease, you're going to reduce your cardio, you're going to reduce your blockage in your artery and reduce additional plaque formation if you listen to me. Your immune system will be better if you listen to me. It's a holistic approach that works. But if you want to listen to Dr. Siegel and every other dipshit out there, you're going to be on pharmacopoeia when you get older. All right. Police officer killed in hospital shooting in York, Pennsylvania. Let's go to live now on that.
Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone who is exposed to this terrible event, and we are so grateful for the outpouring support that we've received from so many of our colleagues here. Thank you.
Leave that to the DA or the hospital. Our information that we have at this time is that
everybody else is in a stable condition who had been shot. One individual was grazed and in fact did not need to go for anywhere else for further care. The other individuals, they have received medical care but are stable to the best of our information at this time. A custodian. Yes, that's based upon the information that we were able to obtain at this point through the investigation.
You know how many were adopted at this time?
At this point in time, it would be speculative to say the exact number. We can definitively say one individual that is being reviewed to see if it was the same individual being referred to at other points in time. So I can't speculate, and that will be subject of the further investigation.
Do you know what kind of firearm was used?
This would have been a handgun, a semi-automatic, if I recall correctly. I do not know more specifics yet in terms of other ballistics testing. Ballistics testing will occur, that will be ongoing.
Any information about where the individuals were shot? You said the dog was grazed, but can you give any more clarification about their injuries?
At this point in time, I would not do so because we do not want to provide any misleading information. While we do have general information, it is general in character. Given the personal nature of an individual being harmed, we would not want to do anything to create any misinformation.
Did Mr. Ortiz shoot anyone, or were the other people who were shot possibly shot in the process of sort of friendly fires?
So at this point in time, there's aspects that are part of an ongoing investigation in terms of certain situations and scenarios. I will say this definitively, that we do know that Mr. Archangel Ortiz did shoot other individuals. The exact trajectory and nature of some of those gunshot wounds and how they occurred, that is subject to the further investigation.
Was the person who was treated earlier in the week, is that a relative of his, and was that person still in the ICU at this time?
So for purposes of privacy, until we're ready to go ahead and reveal those further aspects, we're not going to comment further. We do have information regarding that individual, but quite frankly, that individual's family, their relatives, there's notifications that would need to go through this way. So we would prefer not to say anything further about that at this time. We're trying to be very respectful to the sensitive privacy interests and nature of what all had occurred. So in terms of their security procedures, that's something that would be best left for further discussion. With the hospital, our focus at this point in time is on the criminal investigation in and of itself. I will say this, that the UPMC police officers did rush right in and tried to alleviate any harm, and they were like their fellow colleagues in law enforcement.
All right, I'm gonna pivot over to Fox Business about Trudeau. But before I do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the D3 and the K2. This is a dual purpose stack. This will help with cardiovascular health, but also bone health. All right. D3 and K2, if you do some resistance training and you're taking in calcium, either as a supplement or drinking milk, how I do it is I drink milk. You will, through that resistance training, build more bone density. But you're also going to help with your joint health. Now, there was a question that was on X Spaces about helping with cartilage, especially in the knee. So I'll get to that question after this. But D3 and K2 will help with bone density. This is really important for guys and females, all right? Females, if you're postmenopausal, you need to pay attention to losing bone density. So you need to do weight training, and you need to take D3 and K2 calcium supplements to improve that bone density. Very important. And the earlier you do this, the better. Now, for cardiovascular health, this stack works really well because what it's doing is it's preventing calcium depositing around plaque formation. A lot of times when people get plaque because of the oxidized LDL, you'll get calcium deposits around that plaque formation. Well, you're slowly pulling that out, and you're reducing the chances of further calcification of these plaques. Now, that's the reason why people do these calcium screenings when you get older. Like when I turned 50, I did a calcium screening, and it was 0. That my calcium screening was 0. All right, but many people start to build up calcium when they turn 50 and they get older. All right, to reduce that buildup, this is the stack you do. All right, so it's really important. Right? And I have the evidence to prove it that my calcium screening is 0. So so you don't want calcium depositing. All right, that's important. But not just that, doing resistance training and building up better bone density and helping with joint health is really important. All right, now to improve synergistically the stack for cardiovascular health, taking nattokinase will also help. Nattokinase breaks up clots, so it's reducing the buildup of clots because it's fibrinolytic. But nattokinase also helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. That basically means that your total cholesterol is improved. If you improve your total cholesterol, you're reducing plaque formation, because plaque formation is oxidized LDL. All right, so you don't want that. All right, you don't want oxidized LDL. So bring down your LDL levels and bring down the free radicals that oxidize LDL. So by taking antioxidants and improving your LDL is improving your cardiovascular health. You're reducing the chances of plaque formation. By taking the K2 and the D3, reduces the calcium depositing. All right, but there's that added benefit with K2 and D3, and that is doing resistance training. It's going to help with building up better bone density and healthier joints. Now, to get to the question, before I go to the Trudeau video, how to improve problems with joints. All right, and there's different people have different problems with joints. When I was doing triathlons in my 20s and 30s, I developed osteoarthritis, and I went through this whole protocol to reverse osteoarthritis. Okay, and that's taking high doses of vitamin D3 over a period of time. For me, it was 7 months, but usually the protocol is usually 7 to 9 months. And you're taking in calcium. I took milk, and then you're doing that D3 K2. All right, and you're doing light resistance training on the problematic joint where you have the arthritis. All right, now that's how to remodel osteoarthritis, which I did. Now, some people, they get an injury, or they just have bone on bone, their cartilage starts to erode, and that they end up getting like bone on bone problems. Now, depending on the situation, how much cartilage has been eroded depends on if surgery is needed or not. If a lot of the cartilage has been damaged and eroded, then you probably will need surgery. But if it's due to inflammation and there is some erosion, you can help rebuild that cartilage and strengthen the joint. All right, and how you do that is taking the D3, the K2, taking the calcium, all right, supplements, do light resistance training, because you want to send a growth signal in that area, and you need to take the collagen peptide, which is, it has the amino acid profile to help with bones, also your skin, nails, and hair. But in this case, it's going to help with bones and joints, tendons, and ligaments. Now, the reason why I say the tendons and ligaments with cartilage, it's not just remodeling the cartilage that's important. It's also strengthening the musculature around that joint that's causing the problem. I used to have a really bad shoulder. All right. And it took years to remodel the shoulder. All right. But I did it. So I didn't have to have surgery, right? But it took a long time. And what it is you're sending a growth signal by doing resistance training. But how do I want to say this? You want to do light resistance training on the joint. Let me explain to you what I did to repair my shoulder. I ended up having not only arthritis in the shoulder that I removed by doing this protocol with the D3K2 over a 7-month period, but also what I did was, even though that the arthritis went away, the movement, the articulation had problems. All right. So what I did was I did these cycles of intense resistance training, and then I ramped it down, and then I'd ramp it up again, and I'd ramp it down. And I did that over many years, period. So I might have an intense resistance training on the joint for 1 week, and then I would go down to low intensity and then rest for another week and then ramp back up. And it took a long time to remodel the joint. It takes, when you're talking about cartilage remodeling and strengthening an injured joint without going through surgery, it takes, depending on the amount of injury, months or years, but it can be done. But it's slow and it's painful to go through. So taking the collagen, the D3, the K2 with the resistance training, and depending on what the issue is, depends on if you want to do a high intensity, then low intensity, then rest type resistance protocol, or if you have a lot of cartilage damage. If there's so much cartilage damage, even doing that high intensity workout, you couldn't do. So in my case, I didn't have, major tears or anything like that, or bone on bone. So, but I was able to strengthen the tendons and the ligaments and the musculature and slowly heal the problem. So it was the cartilage, but also osteoarthritis, all right, that I had to deal with. Now it's totally healed now, but it literally took about probably 5 to 6 years to get to 100% healing. But it can be done. But if the cartilage is so bad and so eroded, you may need surgery. So it depends on where it is. So hopefully I've answered your question. It's D3, K2, light resistance training. If you can do that, if you can do a little bit more and cycle it where there's intensity, but it's painful, and then you ramp down with low intensity, a couple weeks later, and then rest, and then go back up to high intensity for a week, and then go back down. And what you're doing is you're pulsing the stress on that joint, and eventually your body is starting to remodel without overworking the joint. But it really depends on what the specific issue is. So I just gave you a recipe on how to remodel joints, but also to reduce osteoarthritis. So hopefully that will help. All right. With that, I want to go to this Fox Business segment about Trudeau. Oh, I'm sorry.
Trump announcing that he's going to impose tariffs on Canada and France over their digital services tax on U.S. tech companies. This comes as Trump's 25% tariff on all imports remains on pause until next month after Canada agreed to boost its border security. Meanwhile, for the first time ever, all 13 of Canada's premiers met with officials at the White House last week. They described the talks as constructive. One premier mentioning, quote, some very frank moments across the table. Emily, this is just a piece of the negotiations the White House is doing really globally when it comes to tariffs.
Yeah, I think President Trump has always sort of put forward tariffs as a
policy tool. In some cases, they're a tariff that you actually carry out. In other cases, they're designed to elicit a reciprocal response from another nation. I think we've seen that with, Mexico and Canada immediately coming to the table to renegotiate on trade when there was a threat of potential tariffs that could derail their economies.
Yeah.
He's used it in this way in the past. So I'm curious to see how this plays out in the long run, whether or not it sort of changes those deficits or we actually see these tariffs put in place.
Well, and Mike, I mean, the Canada-United States story is an energy story. This is about oil exports. This is about pipelines. They are a nation of great natural resources, and we do depend on them for oil imports.
Yeah, the third largest proven resources in the world in terms of oil and natural gas. I don't quite know what the angst and the antagonist towards Canada is, other than
border.
Well,
it's the border.
So yes, you have a border, but like if you look at Canada and Mexico, Mexico has been a destabilizing force to the United States. Okay, it is a narco regime, and I think a lot of things are going to shake out over the next couple of years, given the fact that we've declared the cartels terrorist organizations. Where Canada, very similar population. Yes, they are profiting from our economy way more than we are from theirs, but a lot of that is this energy relationship we have from them. So I don't know if it's because Trump wants shipping routes to the north of Canada. He's upset with the fentanyl coming over the border, which relative to Mexico is a rounding error. It's fun to make fun of Canada, and I enjoy that. I enjoy the hockey game this weekend.
They have great maple syrup. I just want to be clear, and they make really good Christmas movies. But sorry.
But when you look at the two neighbors that we're giving a hard time, I don't think we're being hard enough on Mexico, and I don't know why Canada is getting the brunt of this.
Okay,
that's a good question.
But this is about politics more than anything else, though, where Trudeau is so far to the left, particularly from a country that has, as you mentioned, such huge energy resources. We've heard nothing but sort of leftist climate policies out of Trudeau. I think that's part of why he's got President Trump sort of has taken aim at him a little bit, because it's a disparity between just on the politics.
Yeah, and to that point, Canada's GDP per capita, when you adjust for inflation since Trudeau took over, is down over 20%. I mean, that is a death knell for a nation. He has destroyed the quality of life for the average Canadian. Housing is unaffordable. Groceries unaffordable. It has been absolutely devastating since he took over. Where in the U.S., GDP per capita, gone through multiple different administrations with our own inflation problems, is up about the exact same amount. So things are bad there, and maybe Trump's trying to help him out by exposing what an idiot Trudeau is. But again,
but Trudeau's also on his way out.
Yes.
I mean, to be clear, he has lost political favor in his nation because, again, of these. I mean, they've had that immigrant flood. Think about when they were welcoming immigrants from Afghanistan, and so the Canadians themselves, the Canadian people, I believe, are saying we need to move more to the right. I think the same cultural issues that have hit the United States, Emily, have hit Canada.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing this across the Trump administration's policies. J.D. Vance just went to Europe and said, listen to your voters. Stop pretending that you're this leftist paradise when, frankly, across Europe, you're seeing rejection of those principles. I think we're seeing that in Canada as well. And Trump and others in the Trump administration have a unique ability to call that out and say, you need to listen to your voters because we listened to ours and we had a huge change in the way the politics look in America.
Well, the editorial board wrote about what you brought up with Europe, and the last week was pretty head-spinning when it comes to the relationship between the United States and Europe. And the board says the Trump shock comes to Europe, and they mentioned that when they were asked at a conference where the Europeans would play a role in peace talks. This is Russia-Ukraine. Keith Kellogg, former general, now our envoy, said, "Not going to happen. You're going to be cut out of this." And so either you want a spot at the table or you don't. They want it, and we're saying you're not going to get a spot at the table because of what we've been discussing all morning. You need to secure your own defenses. It's not our problem that you've built up your military.
Yeah, look, I think so. A lot of the a lot of issues here. First, the leadership disconnect from the populace and the people, which we saw with the Biden administration in the U.S. You're seeing that all over the world. Canada, like we were just talking about, and definitely in Europe, where they marginalize political parties because they simply don't appreciate their points of view. Brexit, more people voted for Brexit than have ever voted for anything in the history of the United Kingdom. That took 7 or 8 years to play out, even though it was a clear will of the people, and that sort of pushback is over there. And we were talking about GDP spending for defense earlier. All these countries, they factor in spending on climate change because climate change is a national security threat, and the healthcare for their country, also another national security threat. So it is a joke. I mean, if there was an invasion of Europe and there was no America to keep them safe, they'll be speaking whatever invading country language comes through here because they have not mobilized our military.
All right. Another benefit of NAC that I haven't mentioned, but it's true, but it's not the reason why I take it. It also helps with lung health. So NAC not only helps to boost up the glutathione levels and soak up free radicals, detoxify the liver and the kidney, and also calm the central nervous system, reduce anxiety, but it also helps the thin mucus that is building up in your lungs and also reduce inflammation in the lungs. So it helps with people that have COPD. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help your lung health with NEC also. Now, the third pillar of this four pillar core health protocol that I have is to bring down inflammation. All right. Now I'm going to tell you a stack that helps your immune system and your cardiovascular system. It's dual purpose. Taking turmeric, it's an antioxidant, it'll soak up free radicals, but it'll bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines. That's really important if you have chronic inflammation. So what will happen is that you are reducing inflammation, improving your immune system, and by reducing inflammation in your vascular system, reducing plaque buildup. Ashwagandha root brings down cortisol levels and helps with your blood sugar levels. By doing that, you're reducing inflammation in your vascular system, also helping your cardiovascular system. By bringing down cortisol levels, you're helping your immune system. Most people don't realize chronic stress and high cortisol levels all the time is immunosuppressive. You get sick more often. So you don't want that. Take this stack to help with your cardiovascular health and your immune system. Turmeric and ashwagandha. Another great stack to supercharge this is lignans. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods or with just filtered water, however you want to take it. There's a little scooper. Take a small scoop a day. And this is going to help your endocrine system, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. So you're bringing down that inflammation with this stack to help with your vascular health and your immune system will be boosted up. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. I want these products in your hand. I want you to take them. I want you to listen to my protocol. It works. Ashwagandha, turmeric, and lignans will help you out and bring down inflammation. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. I also have a link pinned for my X channel. Go to the store, get the great products I offer, get healthy, follow my protocol. I'm not aging, and it's not because I'm a vampire, okay? It's because my protocol works. I've been doing this since I was 16 years old and tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it, and better supplements come onto the market, and new things like NMN and C60 and how to stack it with NAC and all the NAD plus and all these stuff that's to the market now that most people didn't have access to in the 80s or in the 70s. So guess what? I just gave you the formula, the alchemy of how to mix these things together to improve your health. And I'm giving you solutions so you don't have to be on pharmaceuticals. Now, some people that are on pharmaceuticals, if you listen to me and the holistic approach, you can wean yourself off. In most cases, you can wean yourself off of those pharmaceuticals. but not always, but it depends on your particular case. But many chronic diseases in the United States are self-induced. Self-induced. All right. Okay. Let's go to this is WFAA. I think this is ABC. Or do we want to go to gains and losses by the No, I'm going to switch. I'm going to go to the BBC, and they're going to talk about Putin's war 3 years on. This is an in-depth analysis.
Hello, I'm Lucy Hawkins. From the BBC World Service, this is The Global Story. 3 years into its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia has entered talks with Donald Trump and not Kyiv about ending the conflict. For Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, this is, as he described it, a dangerous dialogue with Ukraine's hopes for a just and lasting peace at stake. For Vladimir Putin, it could be a chance to end the war on his terms, and by building bridges with Trump, crack the Western alliance that's maintained security in Europe for decades. What do Russians stand to gain from these talks, and what have they won and lost in 3 years of war? With me today, joining us from Moscow, is the BBC's Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg. Let's take you back 3 years ago when President Putin announced to the Russian people his special military operation in Ukraine.
I have decided to conduct a special military operation. Its aim is to protect the people who have been subjected to tortures and genocide from the Kiev regime for 8 years. To do this, we will be aiming at demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine.
What was his pitch to the Russian people about what they stood to gain from the special military operation?
Security. When he made that dramatic address to the nation 3 years ago, went on state television, he basically said that his decision to send troops across the border into Ukraine was to make Russians feel safe, secure. He talked about NATO coming close to Russia's borders. He claimed that Ukraine had become an anti-Russia. So, in a word, security.
Were Russians persuaded by that argument, the security argument, or was there some skepticism?
There was a sense of shock, I'd say. Few people expected this to happen. I certainly didn't expect Russian troops to go across the border in such a number and for this war to start. And I think there was a sense of shock for the first few days and weeks. People listened to what Vladimir Putin was saying. Many people didn't buy it. There were protests in Moscow and in other towns and cities, not large ones, but there was a definite sense of shock that this was happening. Over time, the war became more routine. It's always there. It's in the background. It sort of hangs over this country. And in a sense, it's been normalized. People have got used to this war happening in the background. For many people, it's a war happening on television.
So 3 years into this special military operation, Steve, how are Russians feeling about the war? What do they tell you?
Most people say they can't wait for it to be over. They want it to be over. Now, a lot of people say we want it to be over on Russia's terms. We want victory. We want Ukraine's capitulation. Other people say we hope there'll be negotiations. We hope there'll be talks so we can end this peacefully. But this desire for this to be over is palpable. There is a fatigue with it. Now, of course, the war has had devastating consequences, first and foremost, for Ukraine. Of course it has. But as I say, I think there is a sense here that people would like it to be over.
And Steve, the huge human cost, we know so much more from Ukraine about how many soldiers and civilians have been killed over the past years. But what about in Russia? The BBC's worked really hard to try and establish some kind of figures for how many soldiers particularly have been killed, and it's really tricky. Do we have any idea?
The Russians don't come out with any official figures. From what we can see, there's been a massive loss of life. When you travel around the country, you see cemeteries. There are clearly lots of fresh graves with military flags. When you look on the internet every day, there are, you go on the regional websites, there are announcements about Russian soldiers who've been killed fighting in Ukraine, announcements about funerals. So clearly, a lot of people have been killed. During the Soviet war in Afghanistan in the 80s, I think around 15,000 Soviet soldiers were killed in 10 years. I think the number of Russian soldiers killed in 3 years in Ukraine is several times higher.
And as well as that massive human cost, Steve, people who have lost their sons in battle, what about the economic cost as well? Because there was a US estimate last year that said $200 billion had been spent on the war in Ukraine by Russia. And of course, there's been these huge economic sanctions on the country as well. Has that had a big effect on people when they go to the shops, when they try to buy things, or in the way that they live their lives?
Some Western economists had predicted when this tsunami of international sanctions was imposed on Russia 3 years ago, that the Russian economy would implode. It hasn't. It's managed to survive pretty well. Having said that, there is a lot of pressure on it at the moment, and Russians do feel that. Prices are very high. They keep going up. Inflation is a problem here. I think last year, potatoes went up in price 90%. Onions have gone up in price, butter as well. I noticed that in some supermarkets, they're now selling butter in these sort of security boxes because there have been quite a few reports of butter thefts. So that's a problem. Interest rates are very high, 21%. So that's a problem. And I think, talking to people in fear, some people suggested that, well, perhaps if the war ends, then that could ease their economic problems.
We are at an absolute critical juncture now. Donald Trump starting these talks with Russia, and significantly not with Ukraine, particularly about ending the war. Last week, we saw President Trump calling Mr. Zelensky a dictator, blaming Ukraine for not stopping the war, even going so far as to suggest that it was Ukraine that started the war.
I think I have the power to end this war, and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way.
Would you say then that after 3 years, Steve, it is Russia that is winning the narrative at the moment when it comes to President Trump?
I don't know what the Russian expression, the equivalent for all your Christmases have come at once is, but I think if there is one, Vladimir Putin is probably saying it to himself right now. There is a president of the United States now who appears willing and happy to embrace Russia's narrative on the war in Ukraine.
Now there's a Jewish concept, all right? It's called Simpson, all right? Now, this commentator, talking about Russia, talking about all the Christmases all happening all at once, all right? You don't want blessing to flow too much too quickly. It's actually a curse. You need the flow of blessing to be restricted, but not restricted to a point where there's no flow. But if you have high flow blessing, that is dangerous. All right. So first thing that pops in my mind when he says this is that, well, there may be a lot of things that are helping Putin right now, geopolitically, with this peace accord, the Mar-a-Lago Accord, or whatever they're calling it. But it may be the beginning of the end of Putin with this high flow of quote blessing, or high flow of positive things that seem to be biased to the Russian perspective on this war. Now that's the first thing that popped in my mind. Now, Don's on X Spaces right now, and Don, earlier I was doing a recap on that rabbi. I didn't replay the whole video, but I replayed the section where he talks about the bullet points. And I hopefully I answer your question, but it's 4 bullet points. The first bullet point is that good has to remove evil and kill it. The second point is that good ends up filling the void of the killed evil. And then the third bullet point is that once that void is filled, then good has to be elevated multiple times to gain further strength. And then after that, there's actually almost a rewrite of history where evil no longer existed. Now we know that evil exists, and we're going through the process of killing evil and removing evil. But during these elevated points of goodness, once evil is removed and killed, there's actually a rewriting of creation where evil never existed ever. Now I know that seems paradoxical, but that's what the rabbi said. So hopefully that answers your question. But let me continue on with the BBC here with the Russian Inside Russia commentary. But before I do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take a probiotic. I either have it in a powdered form or in a veggie cap form. I take the powdered form because I take all these other powders. So it's better for me to take during my lunch. But getting a good probiotic will improve your hair, your skin, your nails, the health of your liver. You'll have better brain health. You'll have better sleep. You'll have better mental clarity. Your mood will be better. And with a good gut biome, you're going to improve your metabolism, improve your ability to absorb nutrients, and reduce inflammation. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a good probiotic, improve your immune system in your gut. Bad gut biome means your mucosal layer is thinner and your immune system is shot. So you don't want that. Trust me. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great probiotics that I offer. Take it every day. It's very important. And talking about sleep, Good Night Formula has a lot of different ingredients in it. So go to my store and take a look at the different ingredients. But some of the really important ones are melatonin, tryptophan, GABA, and passion flower that help you go into deep cycle sleep. So you have 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. That way you're consolidating memory. You are detoxifying your central nervous system, which is very important. And with good sleep, you're going to be energetic in the morning. And if you do that regularly, then what's going to happen is your body is actually healing and you're slowing down the aging process. Sleep is one of the holistic pillars for improving your immune system and slowing down the aging process. Because people that are chronically sleep deprived, their cortisol levels are higher. So you're building up toxins and your cortisol levels are higher. So that's immunosuppressive. You don't want that. You want your immune system robust. So you want to bring down cortisol levels. So sleep more, but not oversleep because that's bad, but undersleep is bad too. And also good sleep and reducing chronic sleep deprivation will actually help with fighting off early onset of dementia. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Good Night Formula. And use discount 5 and get $5 off. I want these products in your hand, use them. It helps support my work, but it also helps to support your health. It's a win-win situation. And where else are you going to get such great wisdom on the internet?
Is Ukraine, to blame Ukraine for the war in Ukraine and not to blame Vladimir Putin at all. You never hear Donald Trump express criticism of President Putin. He always says, well, this war would never have happened if I'd have been in power. So he blames Joe Biden. He now blames Volodymyr Zelensky. He doesn't blame Vladimir Putin. And I think that gives the Russians a lot of confidence, a lot of belief that they're going to build a lovely, beautiful friendship with Donald Trump.
So music to the ears of Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin, but also to ordinary Russians, Steve. They also care about how President Trump sees the conflict and how they're being portrayed.
I was asking people about what they think of Donald Trump. Some people were saying, well, you know, there's a bit of a dark horse. We don't quite know how he's going to play this. You know, someone said to me, well, his priority is making money, so we've got to be cautious. So yes, people are hopeful that this thaw in US-Russian relations will actually make a difference and will help to end the war on Russia's terms, but they don't quite trust Donald Trump 100%.
Here in Washington, Steve, there really is a sense that President Trump wants this to end very quickly, this war, and not just as a ceasefire, but an end to the war. If that happens on terms that are indeed favorable to Russia, what will Russia have gained over these past 3 years?
If Russia gets to keep all the territory that it's seized, if restrictions on the size of Ukraine's army are imposed, for example, if sanctions, Western sanctions, are eased or removed, then Russia will be emboldened. You know, Western powers pledged to defeat Russia, to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. And if Russia comes out of this with what it will consider to have been a victory, you will have an emboldened Russia, no doubt about it.
So an emboldened Putin is one thing, Steve, but what about more specifically on those territorial gains? So if Russia got to keep Crimea and the Donbass, which they've wanted to be this buffer against NATO, will they feel that that has been worth it?
Well, the thing is that the Kremlin controls almost completely the media landscape here in Russia. So the Kremlin can spin anything, any way, really. And whatever deal is done, finally, you could be sure that the state media will present that to the people as a victory, as a huge victory for Vladimir Putin, for Russia. Whatever the actual details of that treaty deal are. And people will be told that that is a victory.
Beyond Ukraine then, Steve, I guess my final question is that speaking to senators here, interviewing them over the past few days in Washington, they've said all this talk about his broader ambitions beyond Ukraine is just hysterical. The European elites, as they call them, are overreacting when it comes to that. He didn't even manage to take Kyiv. He's not going to be able to take any of these other NATO countries that are around Ukraine. What would you say to that? As someone, and I'm not putting, you're often asked, what is President Putin thinking? You can't possibly know that. But what would you say to those senators?
Well, there was a time when people thought it was hysterical to suggest that Vladimir Putin would launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I think when you look at what has changed, Lucy, in 1 month, we've had 1 month of Donald Trump in the White House, and look what has happened. Things have been turned upside down. So I think you have to take what's happening very seriously. And you could be sure the Kremlin is listening to the messages and watching the signals coming out of Washington. And the Kremlin is expert at driving wedges between its opponents and spotting signs of division and disunity amongst its opponents. And what it can see now, and actually what we can all see, is a schism between Europe and the United States. We can see America picking fights with its traditional allies. We can see what we thought were common values between America and Europe being questioned.
I think he's framing it wrong. It's not picking fights. It's actually calling off. It's actually closing down the smorgasbord. It's closing down the open buffet of the Euro whiners and spending American taxpayer dollars. It's not picking a war. It's just that, it said, okay, stop sucking the tit of America. I mean, come on. His assessment on it, the way he's framing it is wrong. It's not picking a fight with Europe.
Is being seen by the Kremlin now. So I don't think you can rule anything out at the moment, and you have to take the situation very seriously.
Steve, it has been an absolute treat to have had so much of your time in what has been a very busy week here on the Global Story.
All right, I'm going to pivot to Fox News here. Trump administration declares war on cartel, partners up with New York City. But before I do that, let me plug a couple products here. Ubiquinol, the highest bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get. Ubiquinol is really important. It's an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It helps with mitochondrial health, so it's going to boost up your ATP levels. And ubiquinol helps to protect your neurons. Extremely important when you get older. If you're 40 years of age or older, you should be taking ubiquinol every day. Now, most people that do take CoQ10 do not realize that you're taking usually the lower bioavailable form, not ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the highest bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get. So please go to my store, get the most bioavailable form of CoQ10. This is an extremely high quality product that I have. So please take this. It's synergistic with C60 because of soaking up free radicals. Now, NAD plus is also something I've added to my stack. NAD plus boosts up energy levels. NAD plus also helps to repair cellular DNA and mitochondrial DNA. So if you're repairing the DNA, they're going to perform better. When you get older, you're going to accumulate more DNA damage. It's important to repair the DNA damage. NAD plus also protects neurons. Again, like I said, you get older, you need to protect your neurons. Now, let's talk about C60 really quickly here. C60, I have it in 3 different oils because C60 is lipid soluble. C60, you can get it in avocado oil, MCT coconut oil, or extra virgin olive oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. C60 is a molecule of 60 carbon that soaks up free radicals. It's extremely potent. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. All right? You're going to soak up those free radicals. And when you're soaking up those free radicals, you're reducing stress in your cell and in your tissues, so your organs will perform better, your immune system will perform better, your neurons will perform better, your endocrine system will perform better. Also, C60, by soaking up those free radicals, is also helping the health of the mitochondria, so you're going to have more energy. Take it on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you work out, take C60 before your workout. It's going to soak up the free radicals that you're generating during your workout, but not only that, you're going to have more energy and you're going to recover quicker. It's amazing how that works. But also, C60 helps with neural health. By improving the mitochondria in your neurons, you're going to have more ATP. You're going to be able to create neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters will be released from your presynaptic neuron. And guess what? You're going to have positive neuroplasticity. And with having more neurons firing, you're going to strengthen those neural connections. So you're going to think better. You're going to have better memory. And as you age with better neuroplasticity, you won't have the normal problems that people in their geriatric years have with neurodegeneration. But it's a holistic approach. All right. You got to work out, you got to, proper diet, proper exercise, balancing exercises, stretching exercises, resistance training, some cardio, sleep, proper sleep, train your mind, do some mindfulness, some spirituality or some meditation helps a lot. It's not one thing. If anyone says one thing, oh, they only take, one thing, guess what? It's not working. All right. If it is, it's working not to its highest efficacy. If someone says they're only doing spirituality, wrong. If they're only weightlifting, wrong. If they're only running, because they're training for a marathon, but they eat Big Macs, wrong. If they're only eating vegetables and watching their food intake, wrong. It's a holistic approach. And there's all these different modalities that are important, but proper supplementation is one of those modalities. So please make sure that you go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get C60, take it every day, teaspoon a day, soak up those free radicals, and you're going to notice that your tissues are going to perform better. Your immune system is going to perform better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be thinking better. People that have problems with their eyes, many of them are seeing improvements with eyesight. I used to wear glasses once I was around 19, 20 years old. All right. Once I started taking C60, around 2 to 3 months later, I didn't need to wear my glasses. I'm farsighted with astigmatism. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. It improves your health. All right. Oh, by the way, it also, by soaking up free radicals, which C60 does, because it's the most potent antioxidant there is, you're improving your cardiovascular health because you're reducing the chances of LDL oxidation. And plaque is LDL that's oxidized. Okay, let's go to Fox News.
A major focus in President Trump's first month in office. My next guest is committed to helping the Trump administration address cartel activity in America's biggest city, right here in New York. New York Drug Enforcement Agency Special Agent in Charge, Frank Tarantino. Thank you so much for being here. The Drug Enforcement Administration, I should say. Let me just ask, how are things going? I know that the DEA here has been helping the Trump administration with deporting illegal immigrants. How is that effort going in the first month?
You know, Brian, immigration enforcement and border security are a top priority for this administration and the Department of Justice. And the DEA is working closely with our partners at the Department of Homeland Security, specifically HSI, ICE, CRO, CBP, and Border Patrol, to target and arrest the most violent illegal criminal drug traffickers that are causing the most harm in our communities. And we're having significant success in that effort.
There's been reporting that the numbers are lower than what they wanted. Is the city getting in the way? What's making it perhaps a little bit more difficult to reach the numbers that perhaps the administration had hoped to reach by this point?
You know, Brian, this is a whole of government approach and commitment, and we're using all of the different tools and resources to assemble the intelligence that we need to go out and safely and successfully arrest those violent illegal criminals. And we're doing that. It will take a little time to be more efficient and effective in that effort.
It's been a month. Operationally, has there been a real change from your perspective as to how things are being run here with President Trump in charge at the DEA?
You know, Brian, there is a clear unity of effort and clarity of purpose emanating out of the White House and at the Department of Justice. And it has cleared away obstacles and provided a pathway forward for us to do our job. And we are significantly making progress in that effort.
We've heard a lot about how the border apprehensions have come down. I know now the Trump administration has designated the 6 Mexican cartels as terrorists, foreign terrorist organizations. How does that designation help stop the flow of illicit drugs like fentanyl into New York City?
You know, Brian, the foreign terrorist organization designation significantly enhances our capabilities, and it provides the clarity of purpose and the relentless pursuit that is necessary to eliminate the cartels. You know, the cartels are a public health, public safety, national security threat to the United States of America. These cartels, as you know, are the 2 most prominent, most dominant cartels, the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels, are working very closely with the Chinese and Indian criminal groups who are smuggling precursor chemicals into Mexico, where they're synthesizing and mass producing fentanyl powder and pills. And these same cartels are using violent criminals and vicious gangs to flood that poison across the border and into the United States, that's killing Americans at catastrophic and record rates.
Have you seen a difference in cartel activity in the last month with President Trump in charge, or just with all these things being put into place?
You know, Brian, with our partners at the FBI, HSI, and all the other federal agencies, to include our state and local counterparts, we are working tirelessly every single day to identify and eliminate those significant drug traffickers and drug trafficking organizations like Agua and MS-13, who are causing the most harm, and we've had significant success in that regard. And we've arrested a number of MS-13 members with guns, illicit drugs, and illicit proceeds here in the New York region.
What are we seeing with fentanyl? What's the trend right now? Is it going down? I know you guys have the drug lab here. And is there another drug that we're starting to see more and more at the DEA's lab here that has you concerned?
Well, first, fentanyl is the greatest threat we've ever seen in drug law enforcement. It's responsible for up to 70% of all the drug deaths and overdoses in the United States and right here in New York City. We have seen a noticeable drop in the lethality in the pills that we are analyzing in our labs across the country. It was once 7 out of 10 pills. It's dropped down to 5 out of 10 pills. But this threat is still very real, and we're working tirelessly every single day to make the efforts that are necessary to keep our citizens healthy and safe here in New York City.
And finally, for folks that can understand, how are those drugs typically making their way into New York City? Because I think it's important they understand this as to how perhaps the border plays a part here.
You know, Brian, we work tirelessly every single day here in New York and across the country, working with our partners in the federal government, in the state and local municipalities, to identify the threats that are causing us the most harm, which is why we work our cases from Brooklyn, New York, all the way back to Mumbai, India, from Queens, New York, back to Bogota, Colombia, and from, most importantly, the Bronx, New York, back to Culiacan, Mexico, much like Nicholas Domenici's investigation. And this is our global pursuit mindset, to identify and to eliminate those drug trafficking organizations that are causing the most harm. And we've had tremendous success across the country and right here in New York City. And as recently, we have seized 4.3 million pills right here in New York City and over 450 pounds of fentanyl powder, enough to kill 29 million Americans.
Wow, it's astounding. The drones flying over Mexico looking for fentanyl labs. Hugely beneficial to you guys, DEA. Is that stuff you're using real time? That intelligence?
Absolutely. That's using all of the federal law enforcement community, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community to wield all their tools and resources to attack this threat from every possible angle.
New York's DEA Special Agent in Charge, Frank Tarantino, thank you so much for being here. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
All right. Please go to my store. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. This is the 4th pillar of the health protocol. All right. Now, in this pillar, it's going to boost up your energy levels and improve your metabolism. All right. Like I said, the 4 pillars, max 35 and max 14, boost up your immune system. C60, soak up free radicals, reduce stress in your tissues. Bring down chronic inflammation by taking turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans in the 4th pillar, the Boomer Boost powder, to boost up your energy levels and boost up your metabolism. It has 68 nutrients. Take a look with the label on my website on the extensive compound that's in here. There's a big scooper. You take a scooper a day, either for lunch or for breakfast. You're going to lose weight. You mix it with like a soft food like hummus or yogurt or filtered water. Some people put it in a smoothie or a shake. Some people even mix it with milk. It's up to you. I mix it with soft foods with hummus. Take it every day. What you're going to notice is that within 72 hours, you're going to see an improvement in your body. Within 72 hours. I'm not joking. You're going to have higher energy levels, all right? And you're going to notice that you are sleeping better. You'll notice that there is this like steady burn of energy throughout the day, so you don't feel tired. A lot of times that, you start to lose energy, after, let's say, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Nope, it's steady burn throughout the whole day. You're going to sleep better, and you're going to be over time targeting different systems. Some of the systems that Boomer Boost targets long-term is cardiovascular and heart health. Your strength will improve. Your muscles will improve. Brain function is going to improve. That means that your memory is going to be better. You're going to be thinking faster. You're going to have positive neuroplasticity. You're going to sleep better. And again, like I said, your energy levels will go up and your metabolism will go up. You're going to lose weight by taking this every day. I guarantee you that 1 month's supply of Boomer Boost, and you compare how much you're paying for breakfast or for lunch, and you replace it with Boomer Boost, and with that soft food or just filtered water or however you want to take it, is cheaper. And you'll get healthy. All right. So if you want to save money and get healthy, take Boomer Boost. Take it with for breakfast or for lunch. 1 big scooper a day. All right. Now, if you are someone that is an athlete, using the Boomer Boost as your pre-workout fueling or post-workout fueling would be a great idea. All right. You're going to get that energy level and you're going to have that recovery and help with muscle health and strength and maintenance. So take this every day. It stacks really well with the barley that I have. I have 2 types of barley, heirloom barley and gladiator barley. What's the differences, Dr. Paul Cottrell, of gladiator barley and heirloom barley? Thank you for asking. You get all the benefits of heirloom barley in gladiator barley, and you get one additional benefit. It helps to build strength. So if you want to build strength, take the gladiator barley. All right. It's a high density protein. You can't buy in the store the quality barley that's in this container. You can't buy it. It's heirloomed and it's high density. All right. So this is the building blocks to build more muscle, but not just build muscle. Heirloom, or the heirloom that's in here. So this gladiator barley is going to lower inflammation, build muscle, soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, and bring down inflammation. That means that you're going to recover quicker when you work out. All right. But you're also helping your immune system because you're bringing down that systemic inflammation. So you can take the barley by itself, take a half a scoop or a full scoop. I take a half a scoop a day, but you can take a full scoop if you want. You can just take the barley if that's all you want to do. To get the max benefits with gladiator barley, do resistance training and you'll gain muscle. But if you stack it with the Boomer Boost, that's when you get the best benefit. And you'll be able to control your A1C levels. For the ones that don't know, that means that you're controlling your blood glucose levels. So if you're borderline diabetic and you want to not be borderline diabetic, take Boomer Boost and gladiator barley. If you are diabetic, all right, type 2 diabetes, guess what? You want to take Boomer Boost and gladiator barley, and you're going to be able to control your A1C levels and maybe get off your medication. All right. Just depends on why you have type 2 diabetes. For ones that have type 1 diabetes, that's typically, some sort of damage to the pancreas, some sort of autoimmune disorder or juvenile diabetes. So that's harder to treat. But most people that have diabetes in the United States is self-induced because of lifestyle. And if you take Boomer Boost and gladiator barley, you'll be able to control your A1C levels, lose weight, and get healthy. And if you do some resistance training, boom, you're going to gain some muscle, and then there's going to be added benefits. It's going to be a positive feedback loop. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Boomer Boost, get the gladiator barley. You can also get heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will help to detoxify your body, reduce inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. And you can mix it with Boomer Boost if that's what you'd like to do. Some people prefer Boomer Boost with the heirloom barley. Some people prefer to take Boomer Boost with the gladiator barley. I made a box called the Longevity Boost Box. It's at a discount. You get the Boomer Boost and your choice of gladiator barley or heirloom barley. And you can apply discount 5 on top of that to get even additional discount. I want these products in your hand because they work and you're going to get healthy. And literally, and I'm not joking, you're going to feel the difference within 72 hours. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now, when you do that every day, All right. And you do this for 6 months or for a year. You're going to slim down. You're going to gain muscle. You're going to control your blood glucose levels. You're going to just feel healthier. And like I said, within that 72 hours, you're going to just have a little bit more oomph in your life. And when you have a little bit more energy to do things, you'll be more active. And naturally, you will just get healthy because you're moving around. But if you feel sluggish all the time, you're just going to be sitting in a chair wasting away. Now, do you really want to do that? There's a big part of America is that way, right? But I just gave you the recipe to get healthy. Now, it's a holistic approach. Proper supplementation, proper diet, proper exercise, proper sleep, spirituality, meditation, right? Want to do some resistance training, cardio, balancing exercises, and stretching. All 4 of them are very important. If you're only doing one of these recommended holistic approaches that I'm talking about, you're not getting the benefits of improving your health and slowing down the aging process. If you're only weightlifting, you're doing it wrong. If you're only in spirituality, you're doing it wrong. If you're only with supplements, you're doing it wrong. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great products that I offer, very high quality, and these are the things that I take to be healthy and to slow down the aging process and to boost up my immune system. It works. It's obvious. People have been watching me for more than 5 years. I'm not aging. Now, why is that? Maybe you should get the products at my store. Use discount 5 and get $5 off. Follow the protocol. It works. All right. I want to play one more video here. Cottrell here. Let's play Cottrell for a sec.
Are sending stocks into a tailspin, and that's the subject of the riff. So despite President Trump's repeated statements and efforts, Senate Republicans went ahead anyway and passed a huge spending bill without any DOGE offsets, and most importantly, no Trump tax cuts. The stock market's been watching this all week and doesn't like it one bit. Today, the Dow fell over 700 points after dropping nearly 400 points Thursday. And for the week, score that as a 1,300-point swoon. Meanwhile, House Republicans are working hard to put together one big, beautiful bill, as requested many times by Mr. Trump. But the Senate shenanigans have been front and center all week. Instead of renewing 100% depreciation expensing to promote business investment, or a 15% corporate tax for made in America products, or a 20% deduction for small businesses, all of which would boost middle and lower income worker wages and productivity. Steve Forbes calls it 2025's tax time bomb, the Republicans' last chance to prevent economic shock. If no Republican tax bill, the standard deduction per couple will drop from $30,000 to around $15,000. The child tax credit will fall back to $1,000 from $2,000. Let's not forget tax-free tips or tax-free overtime or tax relief for seniors. The Trump package would re-incentivize and re-privatize the economy. More work effort, more investment, more profits to pay higher wages, lower consumer prices, and higher stock market returns. But the GOP messaging coming out of the Senate right now has put tax cuts so far back on the back burner that they may well fall off the stove altogether. And the stock market doesn't like any of this. There are other warning signs for stocks. The Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index has fallen 2 straight months. 1 year ahead inflation expectations have jumped from 2.8% last December all the way up to 4.3% in February. The S&P Global PMI is pointing down, Walmart warned of sluggish sales for the year ahead, and retail sales overall plunged in January. Wall Street is still worried about tariffs. Though I happen to think investors are going to be wrong about this, President Trump's reciprocal trade policy will eventually reduce tariffs and prices, though he himself has warned there could be some short-term one-off price hikes. But at least for now, the economic signals are flashing slower growth and higher inflation. Not good. Meanwhile, a recent McLaughlin poll asking about the most important issues for President Trump shows cutting taxes at 57%, securing the border at 24%, and national defense 8%. Senator Rand Paul has called the Senate bill, and I will quote, just a spending bill, which I think is a waste of an election, and it goes against what President Trump is saying and against what Elon and Doge are doing, end quote. The stock market agrees with Senator Paul, and it doesn't like it one bit. And that's the riff.
All right, that's the end of my show. Thank you for watching on YouTube, the live stream. For the ones that were listening on X Spaces, I appreciate it. I'll do another show tomorrow. It's bedtime now, but thank you for listening. And Don, I did answer your question, hopefully, from our previous show. So everyone, good night and be safe.